Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to Baiju's Exam Prep IAS. This is Sham Kagod here. Now, before I start the discussion, if there is no issue with the sound, please give me a thumbs up. Do let me know that I'm audible so that we can start with the discussion. Done. Thanks a lot. Let's start. So, last week, what we have done, last class, that is on Monday. Yesterday, there was a gap, by the way. Right. So, Monday, what we have done, Monday, we started with the concept of international trade. Correct? We started with the chapter of international trade. And in international trade, what we have discussed, first one we have discussed is a concept of exchange rate. Exchange rate. Now, what is the concept of a nominal exchange rate or an exchange rate? That basically it means how many currencies, how many units of domestic currency you would require to sell and purchase 1 unit of a foreign currency. How many rupees you would require to purchase $1, or if you have $1, if you sell it, how many rupees you would get. That concept is called as a exchange rate. How do we determine exchange rate? How do we find out how many rupees are equal to the dollar? Right, we have discussed two important methodologies. The third one is more of a mixture of the first one. The second one. The first one was a fixed exchange rate, where the government will determine the exchange rate. And second one is a floating exchange rate, where the supply and demand in the market will determine what is the exchange rate. And in the context of the fixed exchange rate, we use the term devaluation, revaluation. And in the context of a floating exchange rate, we use the term appreciation as well as depreciation. In case of India, we follow a concept of floating only, but not completely floating. This is called as a managed exchange rate. It is called as managed exchange rate. What is the concept of a managed exchange rate? Every now and then, whenever it is required, I repeat, every now and then, whenever it is required, the central banker will intervene in the market, either sell dollars or purchase dollars based on the requirement, so that exchange rate will be stabilized. Is it okay? Every now and then, whenever required, right, in order to control depreciation or in order to control appreciation, Reserve Bank of India will participate in the market, either sell dollars or purchase dollars, so that exchange rate will get stabilized. This we call it as a managed exchange rate or a managed floating exchange rate. IMF, International Monetary Fund, will call this as a dirty float, right? Dirty float. After that, we have discussed what is the impact of continuous uncontrolled appreciation or continuous uncontrolled depreciation on the economy. When rupee appreciates, what is the impact on imports and exports? When rupee depreciates, what's the impact on imports and exports? Then we have discussed factors. What kind of factors will influence exchange rate? For example, interest rates. Interest rates will influence exchange rate. Imports and exports, very high growth rate in case of incomes, right? Or for that matter, inflation rate, current account deficit, speculation. There are many factors which will influence, which will have an impact on exchange rate of a particular country. After that, we have discussed balance of payment. One concept is left out. We'll discuss that today. Nominal, real exchange rates. We'll start with that only. After that, we started with the concept of the balance of payment. What is the balance of payment? It is a record of all the transactions, import transactions, export transactions that take place between one country with the rest of the world. In India, balance of payments is recorded, maintained by Reserve Bank of India. As per IMF, there are three accounts. One is a current account, capital account, and financial account. But in case of India, Reserve Bank of India, although they will publish three accounts, but they will traditionally, they will publish only two accounts. One is a current account, second one is a capital and financial account. What are the kind of transactions in the current account as well as capital account? Examples have given. Again, there are two sides, inflow of dollars as well as outflow, revenue and expenditure. Then we have discussed what is the concept of a trade deficit. Then we have discussed a concept of current account deficit, current account surplus, BOP deficit, BOP surplus, and BOP crisis. If there's a BOP deficit, how does a government of India or even Reserve Bank of India, through what policies will try to reduce the balance of payment deficit. And what is the situation, generally, what is the situation of India in the recent times regarding balance of trade, balance of payment, right? Whether do we have a current account surplus or a current account deficit, etc., etc. And what is the importance of forex reserves, correct? What is the importance of forex reserves? That is the sale of official reserves, sale of official reserves, which is conducted by Reserve Bank of India whenever there is a shortage of currencies, a shortage of dollars in the forex market. Right? So after that, we have discussed a concept of convertibility. Right? After that, we have discussed the concept of convertibility. If you remember, convertibility in simple terms is how easily, without any restrictions, without any conditions, can you convert a currency into another currency. That is a foreign currency into domestic and domestic currency into foreign. That is a concept of convertibility. In case of India, we have a full current account convertibility and we have partial capital account convertibility. In fact, if you remember, I told you there is a committee, SS Tarapore committee. I repeat, there is a committee, SS Tarapore committee. SS Tarapore committee has recommended that we should go for full capital account convertibility. So this is what we have discussed Monday. Let me pick it up from there. We were supposed to discuss the concept of the real exchange rate and nominal exchange rate. And after that, we'll discuss the concept of nominal effective exchange rate and real effective exchange rate. Listen to the discussion very carefully. Certain concepts are very much relevant. Let me start with the first one. What is the nominal exchange rate? Nominal exchange rate simply means today in the market, what is the exchange rate for $1 into rupees? That is, today you might come across $1 is equal to 82 rupees, $1 is equal to 83 rupees, $1 is equal to 79 rupees. So whatever is the exchange rate today in the market, that is called as nominal exchange rate. And let's say hypothetically, I repeat, hypothetically, let's assume the nominal exchange rate right now is $1 is equal to 50 rupees, which means if you have $1, you sell the dollar, you will receive 50 rupees. And if you have 50 rupees, you can sell 50 rupees and get $1. That's the concept of nominal exchange rate. Now let me go to the next one, real exchange rate, RER, real exchange rate. Understand this very carefully. Real exchange rate compares the value of the goods. In case of real exchange rate, we are not comparing only currencies. I'll tell you how we will calculate, have patience. In real exchange rate, we in fact compare the goods which are there in one country with value of the goods in another country. For example, many of you will ask me, sir, what do you mean by that? Let's say hypothetically, right now the exchange rate, I'll start in the new slide. Listen to the lecture very carefully. Let's say right now $1 is equal to 50 rupees. Hypothetical the example as such. $1 is equal to 50 rupees. And let's say this marker, can everybody see the marker in my hand? Stylus, marker, pen, you call whatever you want. Can everybody see the marker? Okay. Now let's say this marker is manufactured in USA and a similar product is manufactured in India. In USA, the value of the marker, that is the price of the marker, let's say is $2. In USA, the value of the marker is equal to $2. And in case of India, the same marker or a similar marker, the value of the marker is 50 rupees. Is it okay? In USA, the value of the marker is $2. And in case of India, a similar marker is available at 50 rupees. Now, if I make a comparison, if I simply make a comparison, can I simply say that whatever price I pay, I repeat, whatever price I pay to purchase one marker in USA, with the same amount of money, I can purchase two markers in India. I'll repeat the question again. Listen carefully. I'll repeat the process. This marker manufactured in USA as well as in India. In USA, the value, that is the price of the marker is $2. In India, the value of the marker is 50 rupees. And let's assume exchange rate right now is $1 is equal to 50 rupees, which means I will pay $2 to purchase this marker in USA, but with the same amount of $2, I can purchase 2 products in India. Correct? All of you will agree? Right? I'll be able to purchase 2 markers in India. So now can I come to a conclusion? I repeat, based on this, can I come to a conclusion? The price of the product, the price, right, of the product or the product in India is more competitive, cheaper compared to product in USA. Is it okay? The product in India, the marker in India, whatever marker we have produced, a similar marker, it is much more competitive, much more cheaper compared to product in USA. And can I write it this way? Finally, can I write it this way? In terms of products, can I say one marker in USA is equal to 2 markers in India? Any problem with this? One marker in USA is equal to 2 markers in India. This will call this as real exchange rate. We'll refer to this as real exchange rate. All of you okay with this? We'll refer to this as real exchange rate. What is the basic difference? In nominal exchange rate, we are comparing currencies. I'll repeat. In nominal exchange rate, we are comparing currencies. But in case of real exchange rate, we are not just comparing currencies, because the price is nothing but inflation. Price levels of the products will be different in different countries. So not just exchange rate, we are comparing products now. In real exchange rate, we are comparing products. Is it okay? We are comparing how many units of the domestic good is equal to how many units of the foreign goods. All of you okay with this? Can I go forward? How many units in a domestic good is equal to how many units in foreign good? This is called as a real exchange rate. Now, right, follow this very carefully. Imagine you're a manufacturer in USA. Imagine you're a manufacturer, you're a producer in a USA. Now from this, what if I say the real exchange rate will become 1 marker is equal to 3 markers? I repeat, please understand this very carefully. Imagine you're a producer of this marker in USA. So what if I say after that, from this real exchange rate, from number 1, the real exchange rate will shift to number 2. Now can I simply say your products have become much more costlier compared to products in USA? Yes or no? Can I say your products have become much more costlier compared to products in USA? I'm sorry, products in India, not USA, in India, because you're already there in USA. And vice versa. Can I also say Indian products have become much more cheaper compared to your products? All of you okay? Indian products have become much more cheaper compared to your products. Now, please tell me, this means real exchange rate has increased. I'll start using short form, RER, real exchange rate. Real exchange rate for you, I repeat, real exchange rate for you has increased. So can I come with increasing real exchange rate, your exports will become less competitive in the international market. All of you okay with this? Right, I'm coming to a conclusion now. Look at the example, you'll understand. If your real exchange rate increases, can I come to a conclusion? Your exports will become less competitive. And on the other side, can I say, if your real exchange rate increases, then imports will become cheaper? Correct? Yes or no? If your real exchange rate increases, imports will become cheaper and your exports will start losing competitiveness. UPSC has the tendency of asking these kind of questions. Please be very, very careful. Please be very, very careful. Right? So this is basically the idea of real exchange rate. Again, I'll repeat it. In nominal exchange rate, We simply compare currencies. We are comparing currencies. But in case of real exchange rate, we are not comparing currencies. We are comparing products. We are trying to find out how competitive is your export. And finally, you'll have to remember this. If real exchange rate for your country, I repeat, if real exchange rate for you starts increasing, your exports will start losing competitiveness and the imports will become cheaper. And on the contrary, opposite side, can we go opposite side? What if it becomes like this? Equation number 3. One marker in USA becomes half a marker in India. On the contrary, opposite side, one marker in USA becomes a half a marker in India, which means whatever money you are paying to purchase one marker in USA, if you use the same amount of money in India, you'll be able to purchase only half a marker. So now, don't you think your markers are much more competitive? Your markers will start getting exported from USA to India, and Indian markers will become less competitive because these have become much more costlier. Exactly opposite. Is it okay? Right. So that is basically the concept, right? That is basically the concept of real exchange rate. Okay, real exchange rate. The price levels will vary from one country to another country, right? Because the product price, the marker price will not be the same. All of you will agree when I say what is the price of a mobile in India will be different in USA. What is the price for a car in India will be different in USA. What is the price of Apple in India will be different in USA because the price levels will keep on changing. Earlier we compared only currencies. Now we are comparing products. We are comparing products from one country to another country. That is the concept of real exchange rate. RER, real exchange rate. And this is the formula. RER, real exchange rate, is equal to price levels in the domestic market divided by price levels in the foreign market into NER. NER is nothing but nominal exchange rate. Now let me go forward. Let me go forward. Another important concept, right? Understand this technically, yes, it's technical, but you do not have to worry about anything else. Listen to me very carefully. Many of you will be confused about multiple things here. Don't complicate it. All these are very technical, optional level concepts. For you, what is relevant, just understand that more than sufficient. Nominal exchange rate indicates rate at which two currencies of countries can be exchanged, and real exchange rate measures the rate at which domestic goods can be exchanged with foreign goods, which in simple terms means NER compares only currency exchange rate, whereas the real exchange rate RER is not comparing only currencies, it compares products. It compares products. Now going to the next concept. Many of you are typing, sir, then what is the concept of purchasing power parity? I'll come to that now. Is it okay? I'll come to that. Many of you are typing, then what is this concept of, right? Purchasing power parity. I've come across this PPP, purchasing power parity. What is this idea for purchasing power parity? Now, understand this very carefully. Whenever you make a comparison, of goods, right, you're trying to find out how much money you're spending in one country for a set of goods with how much money I'm spending in another country, right, for the same set or similar set of goods. In that context, there is a concept called as, I'll come back to this, don't worry, there's a concept called as purchasing power parity. If I want to put it in a very, very simple terms, if I want to basically put it in a very, very simplest terms, please remember this. Purchasing power parity is when real exchange rate is equal to 1. Please remember the formula. Purchasing power parity is when real exchange rate is equal to 1. Real exchange rate is equal to 1. What is the meaning of it? Let me give you with a very simple example. Let me explain with a very simple example. Imagine exchange rate right now is $1 is equal to 50 rupees. Okay, $1 is equal to 50. And what if I say for this marker in USA, the price is $2. The price is $2, and in India for a similar marker the price is 100 rupees. I repeat, right? For this marker in USA, the price is $2, and right, the similar product, a marker in India, the price is basically right 100 rupees. Now, can I simply say, looking at these numbers, whatever price I'm going to pay in USA, with the same amount of money, I can purchase a same quantity of goods in India. Please look at the numbers and let me know. Simple CSAT calculations. I'm not giving you very big numbers, nothing. I'm just giving you very simple numbers. Right? $1 is equal to 50 rupees. That is a nominal exchange rate. Nominal exchange rate. And I'm saying this marker will cost you $2 in America and 100 rupees in India, which means if you have $2, you can purchase same quantity of goods and services in India as well as USA. If you have 100 rupees, you can purchase same quantity of goods and services in India as well as USA. So can I simply say, based on this, you can use formula and calculate it. Based on this, can I say real exchange rate is equal to 1? Let me know. Right? It's very simple. You can use the calculator, etc., later. But just think of it. With 100 rupee, you can purchase one marker. And with $2, you can purchase one marker. So can I simply say real exchange rate is equal to 1? So whenever the real exchange rate is equal to 1, it simply means the currencies are at purchasing parity. They are at purchasing parity. That is, doesn't matter whether you have dollars or rupees, you'll be able to purchase the same set of goods and services in both of the countries that you are comparing. Is it okay? Right? With the same amount of money, you can purchase same set of goods and services in two different countries. That is the concept of purchasing power parity. PPP, purchasing power parity. Now, please tell me, we have come across the term earlier. If you remember the discussion that we are having in the classroom from the beginning, we have come across the term purchasing power parity, and until now we had not made a discussion. Now, please tell me, if you want to make a comparison, how Indians are performing, how USA is performing, is it just sufficient to compare using GDP? Think of it. Is it just sufficient to look at GDP number and come to a conclusion USA is much better compared to India? No, don't you think? A much better comparison will be to look at the national income per capita, and that too at purchasing power parity. Correct? National income per capita, and that too at purchasing power parity. You might come across a number per capita in USA, it is $15,000. Per capita in India is $2,000. But don't you think what they are able to purchase with $15,000, that should also be considered? Does it make sense to you or not? For example, right, let me give a very simple example. Many of you, right, you'll keep on making comparisons to your cousins, right? You'll compare with your let's say the relatives or even siblings. Imagine they have become a software engineer and they have gone to USA. They will tell you, I'm earning $2,000 per month. They'll basically say, I'm earning $2,000, and you'll simply take your mobile, calculate $2,000, and today's exchange rate is 80 rupees. You will make a conclusion 16, 3 zeros and one more zero. So you will come to a conclusion they are earning 1,60,000 rupees, and you are earning, let's say, only 1 lakh rupees. You are earning only 1 lakh rupees in India. So is it a fair comparison? My question is if you use a nominal exchange rate and calculate this way, is it a fair comparison? Answer is no. Why? What if for a cup of coffee in India it is a 10 rupees and in USA it is $1? For a cup of coffee in India it is 10 rupees and in USA it is $1. So don't you think purchasing power parity is equally important here? I hope you understand. Purchasing power parity is equally important here. That's the reason whenever you talk about GDP, gross domestic product, whenever you talk about GDP, generally they will say GDP ranking, India's GDP ranking, they'll say in some of the newspapers, they'll say it is the fifth largest. In some newspapers, they'll say India is the third largest GDP. And some of you will be confused. Right, you will simply say, but sir, in one document they say India is fifth largest, and in another document they are saying India is third largest. How is that possible? How is that possible to have two different rankings? Let me show you one example. Right, understand this. Don't run behind calculations. Many of you start running behind calculations, and because your CSAT is slightly weaker, you'll feel everything is difficult. Don't run behind calculations. Now let's say hypothetically that India's GDP, okay, India's GDP, I'll take simple numbers, let's say is 1000 rupees. Okay, India's GDP is 1000 rupees. And if you take the nominal exchange rate, that is whatever is the exchange rate today in the market, let's say it is $1 is equal to 80 rupees. Okay, let's say it is $1 is equal to 80 rupees. So can I convert this GDP number which is there in rupees in terms of dollars? Can I say India's GDP is $125? Correct? Correct or wrong? India's GDP is $125. Correct? No, my dear. $12.5. Some of you said yes. 12.5, 1000 rupees. 1000 rupees in terms of dollars will become $12.5. All of you okay with this? Yes or no? Anybody has a problem? If you have a problem, open your calculator, start calculating, you'll get the same number, $12.5. So nominal exchange rate wise, if you convert your GDP, you will get it as $12.5. So same 1000 rupee, what if I say real exchange rate? Real exchange rate is $1 is equal to 50 rupees. What if I say real exchange rate is $1 is equal to 50 rupees? Now, if I convert GDP, can I say I'll get GDP worth $20? Correct? I'll get GDP worth $20, right? $1 is equal to 50, all right, rupees. So 1000 rupees equal to how many dollars? You will get $20. So just make a comparison here. Based on this, can I say whenever you calculate a GDP at a nominal exchange rate, India's GDP at nominal exchange rate will be smaller compared to GDP at purchasing power parity. Yes or no? India's GDP at a nominal exchange rate will be smaller, will be lesser compared to India's GDP at purchasing power parity, PPP. Right? All of you okay with this? That is the precise reason. This is exactly the reason why whenever you come across India's GDP rankings, they'll say at nominal exchange rate, India's ranking is generally fifth largest. And at purchasing power parity, India's ranking is the third largest. India's ranking is third largest. And by the way, because I'm talking so much about GDP, please do let me know how many of you have read today's newspaper. I don't think so it was there in Hindu, but any other newspaper. Was there a discussion regarding India overtaking another country to become second largest, the third largest economy? Yes or no? Right? Any other newspaper, Indian Express, right? Financial Express, right? Any other newspaper. I don't think so it was there in Hindu, but any other newspaper, it was actually there. India would be overtaking Japan, right? India would be overtaking Japan to become the third largest by 2030. from around $3 trillion, around $3 trillion, right? Again, I am not giving exact number. It is just about $3 trillion. From $3 trillion by 2030, it will be more than $7 trillion, right? And India would be becoming the third largest country in terms of GDP in the global market by 2030, by the end of this decade. Right? This was there. This was actually there in the newspaper. Now, many of you are asking, how did you get real exchange rate $1 is equal to 50? If you listen carefully, right, that's the reason listening is very important. I said, let's say hypothetically, I said for both of them hypothetically, both the exchange rates, I took it as hypothetically. But many of you ask me, how do you calculate? How do you calculate what is the real exchange rate? In international market, the practice is that World Bank, in the international market, World Bank will publish reports, and in their reports, World Bank will tell you what is the real exchange rate. Is it okay? I'll repeat it. Right? In the World Bank report, they will calculate, and I'll make it simple. It's not so simple, but I'll make it simple. Let's take certain set of goods and services. Let's take a basket of goods and services. Now let's say hypothetically for this particular basket, in USA you're paying, let's say, $2, and in India you're paying, I'll just throw arbitrary number, let's say 100 rupees. I repeat, let's take a basket of goods and services, and for this basket of goods and services in USA they are spending $2, and in USA in India they are spending 100 rupees. So can I say a real exchange rate here will be $2 is equal to 100 rupees, which also means $1 is equal to 50 rupees. All of you okay with this? This is called as a basketed approach. Basket approach. World Bank will do that. You don't worry. You don't have to become an expert in World Bank. You need to pass UPSC exam. So World Bank will follow a concept called as a basket approach, where they'll simply say, for the same set of goods and services, how much am I spending in India versus how much am I spending in USA? Just make a comparison and you will get the real exchange rate. And as per the latest report which was published by World Bank in 2020, the exchange rate at PPP is equal to, that is $1 is equal to 22 rupees. Exchange rate at PPP, on PPP basis, right, that is $1 is equal to 22 rupees. So can I say $1 is equal to 22 at PPP simply means whatever you can purchase with $1 in USA, same set of goods and services you'll be able to purchase in India. Yes or no? As per the World Bank, right, the purchasing power parity for USA and India is $1 is equal to 22 rupees, which means if you have $1, whatever goods and services you can purchase in USA, same set of goods and services you can purchase in India. That is the concept. Correct? Right? So, right, look at the definition now. Please look at the definition. The definition says it is the theoretical, please remember, it's a theoretical exchange rate. It's a theoretical exchange rate at which you can buy same amount of goods and services with another currency. Now, why are you saying it's a theoretical exchange rate? Why do I say it's a theoretical exchange rate? Now, let's say hypothetically, let me go back to earlier example. Hypothetically, whenever you talk about real exchange rate, right, I said real exchange rate, right, it means whenever the purchasing power parity is that is real exchange rate is equal to 1, we'll say currencies are at purchasing power parity. And if you remember the example that I gave you, I took the example of this marker. I said if the marker will cost $2 in USA and 100 rupees in India, and the nominal exchange rate is $1 is equal to 50, then I said currencies are at purchasing power parity. Just go back, just remember it. Right? The marker will cost $2 in USA, 100 rupees in India, and nominal exchange rate is $1 is equal to 50, which means in this example, currencies are at purchasing power parity. And what does it mean in the international market? In international trade, what does it mean? It simply means Look at the example. It simply means neither USA can export the product to India, nor if I export the product to India, the price will remain same. And if I import the product from India, the price will remain same. Yes or no? Isn't that basically the understanding? Is it not what you're inferring by looking at this? The product will cost $2 in USA, 100 rupees in India. $1 is equal to 50 means I can import it to India, same rupee, same amount. I can export this to USA, same amount. That is a concept of purchasing power parity exchange rate. That is what it says. Right? Imports or export does not matter, it says. When the currencies are at parity, it's a theory, by the way. It's a theory. When the currencies are at parity, if you import, the product will cost the same. And if you export, the product will cost the same in two countries. This is what the purchasing power parity theory says. But in reality, it doesn't happen like that. In reality, it doesn't work out. That's the reason we say purchasing power parity is just a theoretical exchange rate. It doesn't happen in real time. It's a theoretical exchange rate. Why? Understand this very carefully. Imagine you're manufacturing this marker in India at 100 rupees. Now, please tell me, if you export it to USA, do you think by the time the product will land in USA, the price will still remain 100 rupees? Think of it. You're manufacturing, you want to sell it in India at 100 rupees and you will export this product to USA. Do you think when the product will land in USA, the price will still remain 100 rupees? Absolutely no. Why? What about taxes? What about taxes? What about transportation cost? Right? So don't you think by the time it will land in USA, it will be more than $2? All of you agree? By the time it actually lands in USA, next example, transportation cost itself, will it not become more than $2? Then despite having currencies at purchasing parity, despite having the currencies at the parity, don't you think by the time your product will land in USA, your product will lose competitiveness? All of you okay with this? By the time this product will land in USA, don't you think your product will lose competitiveness? Which is countering the idea of a purchasing power parity. Right? Purchasing power parity says, in this example, this marker in USA is equal to this marker in India, which means I can import from India, sell it at the same price. I can export from USA to India, sell it at the same price. It doesn't work out. It doesn't work out in real life. Lot of charges will get added, right? Thereby, even though the currencies are at parity, by the time the product actually lands in USA, the cost of the product would be much higher. The product will lose competitiveness. That's the reason purchasing power parity is a theoretical exchange rate. It's a theoretical exchange rate, right? It doesn't consider cost of transportation. It doesn't consider many other factors which will lead to loss of competitiveness when the product is exported or imported. All of you okay with this concept? Anybody has a problem? Right? So these are certain important concepts. So please be very, very careful. Now, do me a favor. More than me, please do yourself a favor. Open the slide after the class today. After the class today, open the slide on per capita income. Open the slide, and if you're wondering, sir, where it is there, I don't remember where the slide of per capita income is there, right? In that case, that slide is there in the national income aggregates, the chapter of national income aggregates. In national income aggregates, that is a third lecture, fourth lecture, or third class and fourth class. You will see that there is one slide on the concerns of per capita income. Right, the concern was generally the per capita income is used to represent standard of living. I'll repeat it. Per capita incomes are used to represent a standard of living. But more importantly, just per capita income doesn't represent standard of living. Purchasing power parity. You should compare standard of living by using purchasing power parity. For example, I'll say India's per capita income is 1.72 lakh rupees. India's per capita income is 1.72 lakh rupees. You will take the current exchange rate, nominal exchange rate, convert that into dollars, you will get somewhere around $2,000. Right? USA's per capita income is much, much higher, more than $10,000. So don't you think 2,000, 10,000, more than that, what is the purchasing power parity? What is the price levels in India? What is the price levels in USA? That will represent a standard of living, not just per capita income. That is the importance of purchasing power parity. Okay. All of you okay? Can we go forward now? It's slightly technical, but once you understand, these concepts are very, very easy. Now let me go to the next one. NEER and REER. What is this NEER? NEER stands for Nominal Effective Exchange Rate, and REER stands for Real Effective Exchange Rate. Nominal and real. Point number one, those who remember, please tell me what is the basic difference between nominal and real? Wherever you have used, what is the difference between nominal and real? Can I say, from nominal, if you take out the impact of inflation, yes or no? From the nominal, if you adjust for inflation, we will go to real. All of you okay with this? Right, sir, where have you used it? Right, we have used the concept of nominal and real in GDP calculation. Correct? We have discussed the concept of nominal and real in GDP calculation. And what is the basics of that discussion? Whenever you talk about nominal, you are not adjusting for inflation. Inflation is there. You're simply taking the prices without adjusting for inflation. But when you say real, from nominal, you will take out impact of inflation, you will get real. Correct? Right? That's a basic idea. Now, what is this real effective exchange rate and nominal effective exchange rate? Let's start. Point number one, we'll go point by point. Listen to me very carefully. Why I'm telling you all of this, I'll just throw you certain formulas. Please do let me know whether UPSC will ask you this. Nominal effective exchange rate. Because many of you will keep on asking me, show me calculation. Prove to me how do they calculate it. I'll give you a very simple example. Nominal effective exchange rate, the formula is pi n I is equal to 1 within the bracket E upon EI. This is one formula. Real effective exchange rate is equal to pi n I is equal to 1 whole bracket E upon EI and P upon PI. Right? Cover the whole bracket. In fact, there is one more parameter here. I'm sorry. Okay, anyways, weighted indices, right, or trade weights. Now, very simple question to you before you start, right, entering into a panic mode. Don't enter. Very simple question to you. How many of you think UPSC will ask you to calculate using such formulas in the exams? Either prelims or mains, except optional paper. Except optional paper. I'm not talking about optional paper here. Right? So how many of you think UPSC will give you certain parameters, ask you to use integration methodologies, differentiation methodologies, etc. If you say yes, sir, they will ask me, my dear, you better, right, apply for mathematics optional. Take up mathematics optionals. Right? Because you believe that UPSC is going to ask you calculus in GS paper. UPSC is right. You're expecting UPSC to ask you calculus in GS paper, right? Absolutely no. UPSC will not ask you this. Now, is the answer to the question settled? Will anybody still ask me after I tell you all of it? Will anybody still ask me? Show me how calculation is done for both the NEER and REER. If you ask me, then I'll throw you these formulas. I'll tell you. I'll give you data. Ask you to calculate in your home. So no, UPSC will not ask you calculations. So don't ask me, tell me why it has increased like this. Tell me how it can increase like this. Absolutely no. Do not waste your time. Absolutely no, do not waste your time. That is one point I wanted to make. Now, what is the importance of all of this? Let me explain to you. Follow the discussion very carefully. Point number one. All of you will agree when I say nominal exchange rate. Nominal exchange rate compares currencies, and the real exchange rate compares products. Yes or no? Even now, anybody has a doubt? Nominal exchange rate compares currencies, value of a currency, whereas a real exchange rate compares products, value of products. Point number one. Point number two. Let's start. If I write today, I'll just throw arbitrary number, don't panic. 1 rupee is equal to, let's say, $10. And let's say tomorrow, 1 rupee is equal to $12. In this example, can I say rupee has appreciated, dollar has depreciated? Look at the example. Don't worry about anything else. Please look at the example. Only focus on the example. Can I say rupee has appreciated, dollar has depreciated? Now, instead of writing like this, what if I say today $1 is equal to, 1 rupee is equal to $10, I'll simply write it as 100 units. 100. Indexing. I will write it as equal to 100. So tomorrow, can I write it as 120? Let me know. Anybody has a problem? Today I will write 1 rupee is equal to $10. I'll write it as equal to 100. Indexing. I'm using indexing concept now. Equal to 100. That's a base. I'll compare that with 100. Which means when 1 rupee will become $12, can I write it as 120? How, my dear? $10 is equal to 100. $12 is equal to how much? Start. Right? These are very, very basics. Very, very basics. I'm not using any calculation. Very much basics. 120. Now, what if I say, just think of it. The index, I'll talk about index now. A particular index which represents value of rupee a particular index which was representing value of rupee yesterday was 120 and today it has become 135. Can I make a conclusion and say it simply means, that is, if the index number goes up from 120 to 135, can I say rupee has appreciated and other currency has depreciated? Anybody has a problem? Just apply common sense. Right? What has happened here? Same thing I'm using. Let's say there is an index which represents value of rupee. And I'm saying the index number yesterday was 120. And today it is 135, which means rupee value has appreciated and the other currency value has depreciated. And what if I say yesterday it was 120 and today it has become 110? Yesterday the index number was 120 and today it has become 110. Now can I come to a conclusion? In this example, second one I'm talking about, yesterday 120, today 110, can I say rupee has depreciated and the other currency has appreciated? Now all of you okay with this? If I throw you index numbers, based on that, can you come to a conclusion whether value of rupee has increased or value of rupee has decreased? That is the concept of nominal effective exchange rate. Nominal effective exchange rate. What is the basic idea? Listen to me very carefully. In nominal exchange rate, I compared one currency with another currency. But you tell me, will India conduct a trade only with USA? Don't you think India will conduct a trade with UK? Japan, China, South Korea, right? Other countries as well, United Arab Emirates, Russia for that matter. So, right, point is very simple. You should not compare rupee value only with the dollar. You should compare rupee value with the basket of currencies. All of you okay with this? You should not compare rupee value always with only dollar. You should compare that with basket. Basket means group of currencies. Because India will not conduct trade with only USA. India will conduct trade with multiple countries. That's the reason on one side I'll put rupee and on the other side I'll put basket of currencies. This is very important, right? Because in nominal exchange rate, rupee versus dollar. But in nominal effective exchange rate, rupee versus basket of currencies. And this, right, this I will adjust that with the trade weights. Trade weights. Now, many of you will ask me, what do you mean by trade weight here? What is the importance of a trade weight? Simple question to all of you. Imagine, right, all these are very technical, but once you understand, it's very easy. Imagine India will conduct a trade with USA as well as with UK. But what if I say 99% of the trade that India conducts is with the USA and only 1% of the trade that India conducts is with UK. So don't you think not just the pound as well as a dollar currency should be included? How much is the trade that India conducts with other countries? That should also be considered here. Yes or no? Please do let me know. Right, in this example I'm taking extreme example, I know that, just to make you understand, right? When I say nominal effective exchange rate, I said put rupee on one side and group. Basket means, some of you are asking what do you mean by basket. Basket means group of currencies, not just one currency. Basket means group. So I'm writing the pound also as well as the dollar also. But can I make a comparison with these two currencies without considering how much is the trade weight? That is, how much of the trade we do with USA, how much of the trade we do with, let's say, UK. Trade weights are also important. Trade weights are also important. And because I'm saying nominal, do you adjust inflation here? Do you adjust for price levels here? You should not adjust. Why? It is a nominal. It is basically a nominal. Nominal means you do not adjust for inflation. So now tell me, is this formula making sense to you? Do not buy at the formula. I do not want you to buy at formula and waste your time. Please tell me, is this formula making sense to you now? Which means I'm comparing rupee value on one side with basket of currencies on the other side with the trade weights. Again, if you are not able to understand the formula, right, decipher the formula, not required. UPSC will not ask you this. Please don't waste time on it. But argument is simple. Point number one, I'll repeat it again. Please listen to me carefully. Point number one, earlier when you talk about nominal exchange rate, you simply compared one currency with another currency. But the issue is that India will not conduct trade only with USA. India will conduct trade with multiple countries, not just with USA, multiple countries. Hence, we need to include other currencies as well. That was point number two. Point number three, if we include other currencies and compare rupee against group of other currencies, that's just incomplete comparison. Why? You are conducting trade with other countries, yes, no doubt. But how much trade you are conducting? What is your trade weightage? How much of the trade you are doing with USA? How much of the trade you are doing with UK? That trade weightage should also be considered, right? That is one more point. And the fourth important point that I told you, because you're talking about nominal here, whatever are the price levels currently, simply take the same price levels. Do not adjust for inflation. Do not adjust for inflation. And those are asking how much is this trade weight, etc., etc. Trade weight basically is out of the total trade that India does, how much of the trade that we do with USA in terms of percentage. I can show you the complete calculation, but it's of no use. Many of you will get confused more if I show you calculation, hence I'm not showing it. I can do the calculation, right? At optional level, in fact, we do the calculations. But for UPSC GS paper, this is more than sufficient. But all of you are okay with this? NEER is an index, correct? NEER is an index. Anybody has a problem with this? It's an index. Second, in increase, right? Whenever there is an increase in the NEER, whenever there is increase in the NEER, can I say rupee value is appreciating? Yes or no? Whenever there is a rise in the NEER, rupee value is appreciating, and the basket of currency is depreciating. And on the other side, if NEER will fall down, if NEER index will fall down, then rupee value is depreciating and other currencies basket is appreciating. This is what you need to understand. This is what you need to understand. Rest of the things you don't worry. Look at the statements here. Effective exchange rate captures the movement of home currency against basket of currencies of trading partners. And those are asking, sir, who will calculate it, etc., etc. Both the NEER and REER are published by Reserve Bank of India. Both NEER as well as REER are published by Reserve Bank of India. RBI calculates, right, with the concept of a base year. They will take a basket of currencies. There are two baskets again. I'll tell you certain points. Have patience. Okay. Now, nominal effective exchange rate is a weighted average of a bilateral nominal exchange rates of rupee in terms of foreign currencies. And I've written the term unadjusted here. Unadjusted means what? It is not adjusted for inflation. There is no adjustment for inflation. NEER is a measure of value of a currency against a weighted average of several foreign currencies. You are comparing rupee against a group of currencies. All these are basically trading partner currencies. Now, right, what is this REER then? What is this REER? Point number one, listen carefully. First, listen carefully. In real exchange rate, I compared products in India with product in USA. Correct? Very simple example I took. In real exchange rate, I compared a product in India with a product in USA. But please tell me, will you conduct a trade only with USA? Apply the same logic. Do you conduct a trade only with USA? No. You will conduct trade with Japan, South Korea, China, Germany, Brazil, right? UAE, Russia, etc. So don't you think real exchange rate compares our exports and imports with only one country, but that is an incomplete comparison. Now I will have to compare it with many other trading partners. All of you will agree with me? Right? A real exchange rate, one product with another product, that is one country to another country, but we are conducting trade with many countries. So don't you think real exchange rate is incomplete? We have to compare with many other countries now. That is a concept of real effective exchange rate. That is, in simple terms, real effective exchange rate refers to a comparison of India's trade, that is Indian products with all the other trading partners. What is the competitiveness of India as a product with all the other trading partners? For example, let's say on an average, understand this carefully, on an average, again averaging, this marker in India, right, whatever money we are paying for this marker, right, that is, let's say one marker in India, if we can purchase two markers on an average in any other part of the world with the same amount of money, right? What I can purchase with that money in India, one marker, with the same amount of money on an average in the other parts of the world, I can purchase two markers. And if this will increase from one marker is equal to three marker, can I say India is losing trade competitiveness in this example? This is India and the trading partners. Just to make you understand, right? On one side, that is the left side is India and right side is trading partners, which means if I compare on an average, with that money I can purchase two markers on an average in rest of the trading partners countries, but with that money I can purchase only one marker in India. If real effective exchange rate increases further, if it further increases, can I say India's exports will start losing competitiveness? And can I also equally say imports will become cheaper? Correct? Equally on the other side, can I say imports will become cheaper now, exports will start losing competitiveness? On the other side, what if I write like this? One marker in India is equal to half a marker in the trading partners. On an average, you'll be able to purchase half of the marker in trading partner countries. Now, can I come to a conclusion? India's exports, if I move from here to here, India's exports have got more trade competitiveness and imports have become more costlier. Is it okay? The exports have become right more competitive and imports have become more and more costlier. Same logic that we have applied earlier. I hope you understand. Nothing different. In real exchange rate, we compared India with USA. Yes or no? Those are saying very, very difficult to remember, etc. etc. My dear, in real exchange rate, I compared India with USA. Correct? But I'm saying India will conduct trade with USA, UK, right? Let's say Russia, Brazil, etc. So you should not consider only one country. You should consider group of countries, group of trading partners. And I am saying if you are able to purchase by spending money, if you're able to purchase one marker in India, on an average, if you consider all the trading partners, on an average, you'll be able to purchase two markers in other countries, which means your product is much more costlier. Yes or no? Instead of one country, you're comparing with other trading partners, all the trading partners. So in this case, your product is much more costlier compared to the products in your trading competitors. And if there is real exchange rate further increases, that is if I pay some amount of money to purchase one marker in India, but with the same amount of money I can purchase three markers on an average in any other trading partner, it simply means your product has lost more competitiveness. It has become much more less competitive. It has become more costlier. Their products are becoming cheaper. Right? So can I come to a conclusion with that? Your export competitiveness will come down and imports will become much more cheaper. That is exactly what I'm talking about. So real effective exchange rate is the weighted average of nominal exchange rates adjusted for inflation. It is adjusted for price levels in two different countries. Because the price of the market, please tell me, if you talk about real, if you talk about the term real, are we not adjusting for price levels? Yes or no? Right, please participate. If you use the term real, are we not adjusting for inflation? Are we not comparing price levels in two different countries? Right, two trading partners, one country with the other trading partners. Of course, yes. So because you are comparing with price levels, we'll simply say it is adjusted. It is adjusted for price levels, whereas a nominal effective exchange rate, it is not adjusted for price levels. Okay, right? So near as well as rear. Remember the concepts. Remember the concepts. Do not try to buy at numbers here. Remember the concepts. So the base here for the calculation for both the near and rear is 15 and 16 done by Reserve Bank of India. Right, RBI considers two baskets of currencies. In one basket, they will consider 6 currencies, and in another basket, they will consider 40 currencies. The reason is very simple. if you look at these currencies, these are the currencies of the largest trading partners for India. These are the currencies of largest trading partners for India. So we have one basket where we will have only 6 currencies, make a comparison. And we have one more basket where most of the trading partner currencies are kept, and we will make a comparison. What is happening to India's trade competitiveness? Is it increasing or is it decreasing? So ultimately, what you need to remember regarding near and rear, these 2 points. Whenever near increases, it indicates that domestic currency is appreciating, and if it decreases, domestic currency is depreciating, but against a basket of currency. It's an index. It is an index, right? It is basically telling you whether rupee is appreciating or depreciating against basket of currencies. Whereas rear, if rear increases, it simply means, right, exports are becoming more expensive, hence there will be loss of trade competitiveness, and imports are becoming more cheaper, right? As a result of this, imports will start increasing. So this is a concept of both near as well as rear. Can we go forward now? Many of you will be concerned about calculations. Please don't waste your time on calculations. Do not waste time on your calculations. UPSC will never ask you calculations. Right? Focus on the concepts. Conceptual understanding is important. Now, before I go forward, this was asked by UPSC. Please tell me if inflation in India will start increasing. I repeat, if inflation in India will start increasing, can you see a larger gap between both near and rear? I'll repeat the statement. This was asked by UPSC. This was asked by UPSC in the prelims. If the inflation in India will start increasing, can you see a larger gap, widening of the gap between both near and rear? Of course, yes. Just like if I tell you, if inflation in India will start increasing, can you observe a huge gap between nominal GDP and real GDP? Same way, same argument. Inflation increases, nominal will start increasing. Nominal will be a much larger number. So the gap, right, or the gap will start widening like this. Right? This was asked by UPSC in 2022. Please be very careful. Okay. Now, balance of payments, we are done with this. We were supposed to start with foreign trade policy 2023. Okay, let's start FTP 2023. Now, what is the concept of foreign trade policy? Government of India generally once every 5 years. I repeat, Government of India generally once every 5 years. There is no compulsion. It is not under constitution. Okay. So the practice has been that once every 5 years, government will come out with a policy, and using this policy, government will promote more and more exports. Basic idea. Okay. Right. Government will come out with a policy. It is called as a foreign trade policy. And using this foreign trade policy, government would try to promote more and more exports from India to the rest of the world. The previous foreign trade policy was announced from 2015 to 2020. The last foreign trade policy was announced from 2015 to 2020, which means after 5 years, Government of India should have announced a new foreign trade policy. But all of you know what happened in 2020, correct? Anybody in the classroom who has woken up today itself and will ask me, sir, what happened in 2022? Tell me. So because of the pandemic that affected Indian economy in 2020, Government of India stated that, no, we will not have a new foreign trade policy. And whatever is the existing FTP, will continue to implement it. We will continue to implement the same foreign trade policy. So from 2020, it was extended to 2021. From 2021, it was extended to 22. And from 22, it was extended to 23. And finally, in this financial year, all of you understand the term now? Finally, in this financial year, Government of India has announced a new foreign trade policy. It has announced a new foreign trade policy FTP 2023. Now, what are the provisions? What is the speciality about this foreign trade policy 2023? Point number one. If you just observe it very carefully, earlier I wrote FTP 2015 and 2020. FTP 2015 and 2020. But now I'm simply writing FTP 2023. What does it indicate? What will you understand if only the starting year is written? Can I say, if only the starting year is written, it simply means there is no end date to this foreign trade policy. Can I just make a conclusion here? Observation. Can I say there is no end date for this foreign trade policy? And Government of India has clearly stated that. Earlier the practice was for 5 years. Now we will not follow that. Let's continue with the same policy, right? Till perpetuity, till I withdraw it, let's continue with the same policy itself. So because there is no due date, right? Because there is no due date, because there is no end date, we'll simply say there is no sunset provision, there is no sunset date. And we have discussed the term sunset earlier also. Sunset means expiry. Sunset simply in the context of economics. I'm talking about economics. And don't take sunset, the term from economics, put it in day-to-day life and think something else. Sunset in context of economics means no expiry date. So the current foreign trade policy, which has come into implementation right now, does not have any end date. There is no expiry date. It will be implemented by the government. But government also stated that under the foreign trade policy, we are going to implement certain schemes. Okay, under the foreign trade policy, we are going to implement a certain schemes. Now we can end the schemes, we can launch new schemes as and when we want to do it. Schemes can be ended, schemes can be withdrawn, but the policy will not be withdrawn. Policy will continue to be implemented as and when there is a requirement. We'll keep on making changes to the policy. Okay, that is the first point. Second very important point, the policy will now focus on promoting exports worth $2 trillion. Very important. Promoting exports worth $2 trillion by 2030. Many of the experts have said this is very ambitious, very, very ambitious. Earlier foreign trade policy had a target of around $900 billion. And we have not been able to achieve merchandise exports. We have hit the highest merchandise exports of around $400 billion. Right, 400 plus. Last year we crossed it for the first time. So $2 trillion, that is a target that you have set up of total exports from India by 2030. Now, what are the important provisions which have been announced by the government under this policy? Let's go point by point. Understand these points very carefully. Let's start with the first one. That is incentive to remission. Now, what is this concept of incentive to remission? Please listen very carefully, slightly technical, but once you understand, it's basically very simple for you. Now, what is this incentive to remission? Let's start with the basic evolution. Right? Understand the evolution. In the earlier policy, that is FTP 2015 to 2020, government had announced two very important schemes. Two very important schemes were announced. One was called as service exports from India scheme. Service exports from India scheme. Okay, service exports from India scheme. Can I write it as a short as a SCIS? Anybody has a problem? Service exports from India scheme. And another scheme was merchandise exports from India scheme, and that would be MEIS. All of you okay with the short form MEIS and SCIS? One is merchandise exports from India scheme. Second one is service exports from India scheme. And what was this merchandise and service exports from India scheme? Under the MEIS as well as the SCIS, Government of India, I repeat, Government of India provided incentives, subsidies which were connected to value of exports. I'll give you example, have patience. Government of India provided incentives or subsidies which were connected, which were linked to value of exports. Meaning what? Many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by this? Let's start with a very simple example. Imagine you have exported $100 worth of goods. I'm taking dollars, you can even take in terms of rupees. Do not panic. Let's say you are exporting $100 worth of goods, and government of India would simply announce you will get 5% incentive. Whatever is the value of your export, 5% of it I will give you subsidy. Now please tell me, if you export $100, can I simply say you will get $5 worth of subsidy from the government? All of you okay? You will get $5 worth of subsidy. What if you export a $500 worth of goods or services for that matter? What if you export $500? Can I say you will get subsidy is worth $25? Correct? Simple calculation. What if you export $700 worth of goods? You will get $35 worth of subsidies. Point number one. Now, please tell me, looking at the calculation, can I say the subsidies that you are getting are export linked subsidies? Look at it and do let me know. The subsidies that you are getting are nothing but export linked subsidies. Meaning what? The amount of subsidy you get is connected to value of exports that you do. Point number two. And point number three, interesting now. Listen, slightly interesting. Sir, I would get $35 in the third example. I will get $35 in the third example. How this $35 will be given to me? Earlier, government used to issue something called as a duty credit scrip. Duty credit scrip. Scrip simply means a certificate. Many of you start typing, what do you mean by scrip? Scrip means a certificate. Let's say, right, can you see your friend is back? Let me know. All of you can see, right, your friend is back. I am the government, or let's say you are the government. I have exported $700 worth of goods. You will give me a certificate. This is the certificate, and you will tell me, sir, this certificate has a value of $35. All of you okay with this? This certificate has a value of $35. And what is the use of this certificate? Let's say tomorrow or after 2 weeks, after 1 month, I'm importing certain product. Correct? I'm importing certain product. And when I'm importing, I will have to pay certain taxes to you. Yes or no? When I'm importing, I'll have to pay certain taxes. Right? That is duties on imports. And when I'm paying these taxes to you, I can simply use this certificate whose value is $35. I can pay this particular certificate instead of paying $35 to you. All of you okay with this concept here? Anybody has a problem with this? Let me know right now. Right, the certificate would be issued to me, and when I import something, instead of giving you $35 cash, I would simply give you this certificate instead of $35. These were referred to as duty credit scripts. Duty credit script. And now some of you will have this doubt. Sir, if I'm importing something, I can pay. I can use that script and pay to you. What if I'm not importing anything? Right? Then it becomes a problem. What if I don't import anything? Then government say, you have this duty credit script. If you cannot use it, transfer it to someone else. You have a script whose value is $35. You cannot use it. So you can sell it, you can transfer it to somebody else, get the money from them, and they will use it to pay taxes to government. That was the concept of duty credit script. All of you okay with this? Can we go forward? And that is the point number 3. Now, this scheme became a problem. The scheme that was implemented by the government was a big problem. Why? I'll tell you. Government of India has signed one agreement. Under the WTO, Government of India has signed one agreement, and the name of the agreement is Subsidies and Countervailing Measures. The name of the agreement under WTO is referred to as Agreement on Subsidies and Countervailing Measures. In short, SCM. SCM, Agreement on Subsidies and Countervailing Measures. And what does the Subsidies and Countervailing Measures Agreement actually state? It states that if any country under WTO, which is a member of WTO, if the country's per capita national income of that country crosses more than $1,000 for 3 consecutive years, then they should not provide any export linked subsidies. I'll repeat it again. India is a signatory to one agreement under WTO, which is called as Agreement on Subsidies and Countervailing Measures. And what does this agreement actually state? It states that any country, member country of WTO, if their per capita income, national income crosses more than $1,000 for 3 consecutive years, then such country should not provide export linked subsidies. And there's a logic to that. There is a reason behind it. Many of you will ask me why. Why should we not provide export linked subsidies? My dear, think of an extreme example. Extreme example. Do you think the exporters from a very, very poor country, any African country, for example, let's say Zimbabwe or Namibia, right? Take for example, very poor country from Africa. Do you think they can compete with the subsidies which are given by a country such as USA? Think of it. You are a manufacturer in USA, very well developed country. The government of USA will provide you subsidies, export linked subsidies, so that you will export more and more. And because you are getting subsidy, you will export more to African countries. But in the process, are you not destroying the manufacturing activity of many of these countries? So that is the argument. That is basically the argument, right? Why the WTO agreement says if your per capita income crosses more than $1,000, do not provide export subsidies. And apply this to India. India is a signatory. Apply this to India. India's per capita income has been more than $1,000 post 2013. Post 2013, that is since 2013, India's per capita income is more than $1,000. So on one side, you have signed the agreement where you are saying, I will not give subsidies. And on the other side, you are giving, right, service exports from India scheme, merchandise exports from India scheme. Now you please tell me, will not other countries such as USA complain against India? Does it make sense to you or not? And will the other countries keep quiet with this kind of a policy of government of India? They will go to WTO, file a complaint against India. In fact, they have done it. And after the break, you'll understand when the complaints are filed, what will happen, etc., etc. You'll understand after the break. Don't worry. So they filed a complaint against these kind of policies of government of India. And WTO said that yes, right, they are correct. India should not be providing such subsidies. That is the precise reason government of India has stopped both of these SCIS as well as MEIs. Government of India does not provide the subsidies in this way now. Now there is a new system. The new system is much more interesting in the name of RODTEP. Right? RODTEP basically stands for Remission of Duties or Taxes on Export Products. Remission of duties or taxes on export product. RODTEP. Remission basically means you pay, I will return it back. Remission means you pay the taxes, I will return back. That's a concept of remission. Now, what is this concept of RODTEP? I'll explain this. Listen carefully here. Okay, let's start. Imagine you're manufacturing a particular product. Okay, you're manufacturing a particular product. And to manufacture this product, you'll require raw material A, you'll require raw material B, and you'll require raw material C. Okay. And when you purchase raw material A, you'll pay GST. I'm talking about GST. You'll pay GST of 10 rupee, and B, you'll pay GST of 20 rupee, and C, let's say it is not under GST. Right? For example, many of you will ask me, sir, any example of a product which doesn't have GST? Can I say fuel? Correct? Even today, right? Do you think petrol has a GST rate on it? Diesel has a GST rate on it? What about electricity? Even electricity does not have any GST rate, which means understand the next point very carefully. Which means, can I simply say, when you pay GST on A and B, you'll get input tax credit of 10 rupee as well as 20 rupee. Correct? Anybody has a problem? I'll repeat the statement again. When you pay GST on product A and product B, you'll get input tax credit of 10 rupee plus 20 rupee. But when you pay any other taxes on products such as fuel, products such as electricity, will you get input tax credit of 30 rupees? Let me know. Will you get input tax credit of 30 rupees? Answer is no. Some of you are saying yes. My dear, revise. GST concept. If a product is not under GST, how can you get input tax credit? Please do let me know. Right? Has finance minister personally spoken to you and said that this is how we are going to do it? Let me know. You will not get any input tax credit. You will not be getting any input tax credit. Reason is simple. It is not there under GST. There is no GST on it. If GST is not collected, how can you get input tax credit? So can I simply say, in these numbers that I've written here, you will get ITC of 10 rupee, you will get ITC of 20 rupee, but you will not get, I repeat, you will not get input tax credit of 30 rupee. Right? That is very important point. Why? You will understand. Now let's say you are manufacturing it and you're exporting it. You're manufacturing it and you're exporting the product, let's say at 500 rupees. Now, can I say out of 500 rupee, you have included tax of 30 rupees? Anybody has a problem? Out of 500 rupees, you also have included tax of 30 rupees. Why? Because you have not received any input tax credit. Hence, when you decide the price to be 500, you will include this 30 rupee tax and decide this as 500. Now, please tell me, because of this tax, can I say market price of the product will increase? Point number two, if you export this product, you are exporting the tax as well. And point number three, whenever such taxes are there in the system, they will reduce your trade competitiveness. All of you okay? Whenever such taxes are there in the system, they will reduce your trade competitiveness. And if you want to understand this in a much clearer way, that this should be very clear to you. But if you want to understand in a much clearer way, very recently, right, in today's, I believe, Business Standard newspaper, there was a talk about cesses being implemented by many state governments. Can I give you example? Goa state government. Right, very recently, Goa state government has announced cesses on steel mining companies. Now, what is a cess? Please tell me, what is cess? Cess is nothing but a tax. Correct? Cess is nothing but a tax. If you are going to impose a cess on a mining company and collect taxes from them, can I say more taxes paid means the cost of production will increase? Yes or no? More taxes means cost of production will increase. And when cost of production increases, what will happen to your export competitiveness? What do you think will happen to your export competitiveness? Your export competitiveness will automatically come down. Your export competitiveness automatically will come down. In fact, in this week, Friday, I'll give you these articles. Read these articles. Very, very nice articles. So all of them are connected to current affairs only. Right? All of them are connected to what we are discussing in the classroom, etc. Right? So I hope you understand the argument here. So whenever these taxes which are collected by the government, I repeat, which are collected by the government, but not returned back, not refunded by the government, they will increase the market price. That will reduce the trade competitiveness. It also means when we export the product, we are exporting the tax, right, on the product. Such taxes, I repeat, such taxes are called as embedded taxes. All of you okay with this particular term? Such taxes are referred to as embedded taxes. Embedded means which are collected but not given back to the manufacturer. Which are collected by the government but not given back to the manufacturer. These are called as embedded taxes. Can we go forward now? So can we come to a conclusion finally in this slide? If embedded taxes are more, market prices will also be more. Right? If market prices are more because of higher embedded taxes, your trade competitiveness will be very, very low. How can we address this? How can we basically address this situation? Government of India has introduced a new scheme by the name of RODTEP. And under RODTP, what government says is the taxes that you have paid, I repeat, the taxes that you have paid, which are embedded taxes, either at the central level or state level or even at local level, right? You have paid certain taxes either at the central, state or local level, and these are embedded taxes. These taxes, I will return them back to you. I will give them back to you. In this example, please tell me how much is the embedded tax? 30 rupees the embedded tax. If government will tell you have paid 30 rupee tax, let's say at the state level, but you are not getting it back, but I will return it to you. I will give it back to you. Don't you think automatically your export price will come down from 500 rupees to 470 rupees? Yes or no? Assuming nothing else changes. Right? Don't say, sir, what about that? What about this? Talk about only taxes here. If the embedded taxes of 30 is given back to you, automatically your export price will come down. Now, with the reduction in the export price, can I say your trade competitiveness will increase? All of you will agree? Your trade competitiveness will increase. And point number 3 here, listen very carefully. Can I say this product whose price is 470 rupees has zero taxation now? Correct? Yes or no? This particular product whose price is 470, which is being exported now, has a zero taxation. Can I call this process as zero taxation of exports? Can I refer to this process as zero taxation of exports? Zero taxing the exports. Right? Whatever taxes are there under GST, they are given back to you in the form of ITC. And whatever embedded taxes are there, I will return it back to you. I've collected the taxes, I will return it back. So whatever product you are going to export now has a 0 rupee taxation. Right? This is called as a zero taxation of exports. Zero taxation of exports will promote competitiveness of exports. And that is the whole concept of remission of duties or taxes on export product. Remission of duties and taxes on export product. Now, let me go to the next point here itself. How much is the embedded tax? In this example, embedded tax is 30 rupees. What will the government do? Government will not give you cash of 30. Government will not give cash of 30. Your friend is back. Government will give you a duty credit scrip of 30 rupees. Is it okay? Government will give you a duty credit scrip of 30 rupees. Right? Again, same logic. You can use this duty credit scrip to pay the taxes on any of your imports. If you cannot use it, you can simply transfer it, sell it to somebody else who will use it in the market. This is how RODTEP will actually play out. Can we go forward now? Now, please look at the last point. Look at the last point regarding these schemes. can I say, if you make a comparison of MEIS and SEIS on one side to RODTP on the other side, can I say we are moving from incentives to remission now? Yes or no? If you write MEIS and SEIS on one side and RODTP on the other side, can I say we are moving from incentives to remission system? And what is the beauty of this system as of now, up to till date? As of now, please remember this. Under RODTP, I'm not giving incentives. Right? I hope you understand this. Under RODTP, I'm not giving you subsidy. I'm not giving you incentives. Right? What I'm doing is, whatever taxes which have not been returned to you, refunded to you, I will return those taxes. So don't you think by providing RODTP, at least as of now, we are not violating the subsidies and countervailing measures agreement under WTO? I hope you understand this. Right? By providing remission, remission means what? You pay, I will return it. Unlike incentive. I hope you understand the logic behind it. Many of you basically say, but sir, at the end of the day, government is giving money. What is the use of it? My dear, on one side, incentive means you export, I will give you money. Right? You export, I will give you money. That is MEIS and SEIS. On the other side, RODTP says you have already paid money in the form of taxes. Some of them I've given back to you, but some of them I've not given back. So let me give those taxes back. Right? Let me give those taxes back to you. So both are two different systems. Don't say both are one and the same. Right? So one will violate SCM, and second one, at least as of now, there is no violation of SCM. But more importantly, all of you will agree when I say that basically we are shifting from the concept of right, the incentivization to remission system. Right? So that is the first pillar. Incentives to remission system. Second one, ease of doing business. Lot of reforms have been taken by the government, will also be taken by the government in the future to promote ease of doing business. For example, many of you will ask me, how do you say government is promoting ease of doing business? I'll give you one example. Please check this article later. Today in Mint newspaper, there is one very nice article, in fact very important for you. Government of India has launched a portal by the name of NSWS. You can check it later. Government, right, in today's Mint newspaper, this was one of the article. Government has launched a portal by the name of NSWS, right? That is a National Single Window System. NSWS, Single Window System. Now, what is this? The benefit of a single window system? Under the single window system, government says, if you want to get certain licenses, approvals from the state government, around 20 plus, both for the center as well as the state. If you want to get certain licenses, approvals from the state as well as from the center, you do not have to go from one ministry to another ministry to get licenses. You don't have to go. What you have to do is apply for all these approvals using this portal itself. Check it. Very, very nice initiative. UPSC can ask you questions on these kind of initiatives. Right? More than 30 types of approvals from the central government as well as state government. You don't have to go from one ministry to another ministry. No. You can basically, right, log on to this portal, apply for all the approvals, submit whatever documents they will ask you for. And on timely basis, you can keep on checking what is the status of your approval. Has this ministry given you approval? That ministry, which ministry is yet to give approval? All the status in real time, you can check using this particular portal itself. Now, don't you think this kind of a portal will promote ease of doing business? Let me know. Right? Don't you think this kind of a portal will promote ease of doing business? And can I say, right, suddenly UPSC will use this statement and you'll start panicking. Can I say this will also promote the concept of more governance, less government? More governance, less of government. And third point, this will also make the process faceless. Think of it. This will also make the process faceless now. That is, you don't have to come to, right, or go to the office, get in touch with the bureaucrats, right, run from one desk to another desk. Absolutely no. This will make the process faceless now. Right. So I hope you understand the logic. Right. All of these are there in the current affairs. Please read it. Okay. Ultimately, point is simple. It will promote ease of doing business. Come to the third, export promotion initiatives. Can I give you one example? PLI, production linked incentives. PLI, production linked incentives. Today we'll discuss it, by the way. Please tell me, with implementation of Make in India, production linked incentives, right? Is it not promoting more and more exports from India? Yes or no? Again, these are some of the initiatives, right? Government has implemented multiple initiatives, multiple. But argument is simple. Are we not promoting exports with these kind of initiatives? Answer is yes. Export promotion initiatives. Boost manufacturing sector. Boost manufacturing sector, right? What is this? Boosting manufacturing sector. Take example of Make in India. Take the example of Make in India, right? Make in India, under that 15 manufacturing sectors are covered. 15 manufacturing sectors are covered. What about PLI, production linked incentives? 14 sectors are covered. What is the whole objective? We want to promote more and more manufacturing in India, or for that matter, right? The Mitra, PM Mitra initiative, promotion of textile units in India, right? So I hope you understand the logic behind all of it. We are promoting a lot of, right, manufacturing sectors. We want to boost manufacturing in India. Point number 5, e-commerce exports. E-commerce, basically electronic commerce, right? Such as music, right? Other types of systems, right? Games, etc., etc. So we are also promoting e-commerce exports from India. Point number 6, promotion of exports from districts. Promotion of exports from districts. For example, how many of you heard of one district to one export? I'm sorry, one district, one product, ODOP. One district, one product, right? Export of one product, at least one product, ODOP. Right? One district, one product. What's the argument of ODOP? Government of India says, in all the districts in India, there'll be at least one product. Okay, there'll be at least one product which has export potential. That's very important. There will be at least one product which has export potential. We will identify that product and will try to promote as much as possible export of this product to the international market. Right? Many of you ask me, sir, any kind of a product that you can think of which has export potential? My dear, many of the products in India have got GI tags. Have you heard of this? Many of the products in India have GI tags. GI basically stands for geographical indication. GI tags. Or what about textile products in some of the states such as, let's say, Tamil Nadu, or for that matter, Andhra Pradesh, or for that matter, Rajasthan, right? So there are lot of products which have export potential. So government of India says every district, I will try to find out at least one product which has export potential, and through various policies, we'll try to promote export of these. This initiative is called as one district, one product. One district, one product, ODOP. But in fact, please understand, over a period of time, Government of India has taken this ODOP. There is one more initiative. ODOP has been merged with that initiative. That is, there is one more initiative by the name of Developing Districts as Exports Hub. Developing districts. Developing districts as export hubs. Please remember this, right? ODOP for operational purposes, implementation purposes. has been merged with one more initiative, one more program of Government of India, developing districts as export hubs. Done. So we want to facilitate more and more exports from these right districts itself. Right. So that is sixth point. And seventh point, streamlining SCOMET policy. Streamlining SCOMET policy. SCOMET basically stands for special chemicals, organisms, materials, equipments, and technologies. SCOMET policy. Okay, special chemicals, organisms, materials, equipments, and technology. SCOMET. Now, what is this idea of a SCOMET? Please understand there are certain technologies, can I say, which will have dual usage. There are certain materials which will have dual usage. Right? For example, many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by dual usage? I'll just give you right one very important material. You tell me, does it have dual usage or not? For example, what about drones? What about nuclear material? Right? Can you use drones for civilian purposes? Yes. Can you use drones for military purposes, security purposes? Yes. What about nuclear material? You can use it for civilian purposes also, as well as right for national security purposes also. So argument is simple. There are various organisms, products, technologies, materials, chemicals, etc., which will have multiple usages. So we want to have a policy which will control means basically regulate export as well as import of such materials or such organisms, etc. That policy is called as a SCOMET policy. India is a signatory to SCOMET policy, and under the foreign trade policy, we are saying that we will effectively implement SCOMET policy as such. Done? Right. So these are certain very important provisions of concept of foreign trade policy 23. I'll not say end date here because it is just perpetual nature. It can be implemented for multiple years. Okay. Right. So the next concept will be World Trade Organization, WTO, World Trade Organization. Okay. Now, before I go with World Trade Organization, let me address your questions. Then we can take a break. What is the difference between PPP and RER? I've already explained it. Okay, so in case of RER, it is a basic comparison. But if RER is equal to 1, we'll say it is a PPP. If we increase, just a second, if we increase RER, that is one marker is equal to 3 markers in India, doesn't it show that we make more markers in India and we can export? My dear, when I'm making a comparison in RER, it's not production wise, it is price wise. That is in simple terms. In simple terms, what I'm trying to tell you people is that when I say one product in USA is equal to 3 products in India, I'm not talking about if one unit is manufactured in USA, 3 units are manufactured in India. No, I'm not talking about it. I'm saying if you pay, let's say 150 rupees to purchase the similar marker in USA, you will have to pay 150 rupees to purchase 3 markers in India. That is the meaning of it. Right? So don't say, sir, we are producing more markers, we should export more. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about pricing here. I'm talking about pricing. Okay. Exchange rate PPP, does it refer to real exchange rate? Again, I'll repeat it. If real exchange rate is equal to 1, I'll repeat the statement. If real exchange rate is equal to 1, then it simply means your currencies are at parity. Meaning, whatever is the nominal exchange rate today, understand the logic. Whatever is the nominal exchange rate, using those currencies, you can purchase the same set of goods and services in 2 different countries. Hypothetically, if nominal exchange rate is $1 is equal to 50 rupees, and if I say these currencies are at parity, what does it mean? whatever goods I can purchase with 50 rupees in India, I can purchase the same set of goods and services using 50 rupees in USA. That is a concept of right, the purchasing power parity when RER is equal to 1. Okay. uh, RODTP is aligning with the WTO, or is this controversial as of now? That's the reason I'm continuously using this statement. As of now, there has been no complaint against RODTP, right? As of now, it is complying with the WTO regulations. Okay. So in RODTP, the money paid back is called, is it volatile? Are Baba. In RODTP, the money that is paid is not given in the form of cash. It is not given in the form of cash. It is given in the form of duty credit script. Do you remember duty credit script? Certificate. Duty credit scripts are issued, and much more importantly, it is there in the slide here. But anyways, I'll tell you. Right, in case of duty credit scripts under RODTP, these are digital. These are not physical. These are digital. That is online. Certain certificates are issued. All of you heard of online coupons, right? That is coupons. Digital vouchers will be given to you. Many of you ask me, sir, any example of digital voucher? How many of you used Google Pay to make payments? Paytm to make payments? Do you get vouchers or not? Digital vouchers, right? You will scratch like this, and the Google Pay will say, congratulations, you have got 1 rupee cashback. Congratulations, you have got 2 rupee cashback, right? Or sometimes, right? Please try again. Bad luck. Sorry, etc., etc. Same logic, right? So RODTP, they will not give you a physical certificate. No paper, no paperless certificate. They will issue you. Right? You can use that to pay for import duties. And there is one committee name. Please remember by heart the name of the committee. Earlier, in order to implement RODTP and to find out what should be the rate, right? How much taxes should be reimbursed. Government had set up a committee by the name of GK Pillai Committee. GK Pillai Committee. Right? Name of the committee is important. UPSC can ask you that in the prelims. Please remember it. Okay, done. Right. So this is basically regarding the concept of foreign trade policy. Next one is a World Trade Organization. We'll take a World Trade Organization after the break. Okay, after the break. So time is 6:52. We'll restart the discussion at 7 p.m. We'll restart the discussion at 7. Please join back. Okay. Am I audible? Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Am I audible? Let's start. Okay, done. So next concept I'll be discussing will be World Trade Organization, WTO. Important. Please listen carefully. All the concepts are important. Point number one, WTO is a very, very, very vast idea. You don't have to read everything from A to Z for international organizations. Don't do that. For example, what do I mean by don't have to read A to Z? If you talk about both WTO as well as IMF, in both of these organizations, there are more than 150 member countries. More than 150 member countries. Should you have to spend, right, 1 year, 2 years to by heart all the member countries? Absolutely not needed. Simply remember whether India is a member or not. That's more than sufficient. So that's the reason why I'm saying WTO is a very, very large idea, right? Very big concept. People do their thesis on WTO. You don't have to do that much. Understand basic concepts and current affairs, whatever is there in the discussion. With that caveat, let me start. Let me tell you a basic story. Understand the story. In 1939, all of you know what happened? 1939, there was an outbreak of Second World War. And during the course of Second World War, right, around the world, many countries experienced the fact that because of the war, trade has been disrupted. Right? Trade has been disrupted. Exchange rate has got destabilized. Many countries are suffering because of right, the outcome of the war. Infrastructure needs to be developed. Looking at all of this, in 1944, in 1944, in USA, there's a place called as Bretton Woods. There's a place in USA, United States of America, Bretton Woods. It's name of a place. Okay. In the Bretton Woods, there was a conference held. There was a meeting. Conference is nothing but meeting. There was a conference which was conducted. And in this at Bretton Woods conference, we came to a conclusion that we should have three very important international organizations. We should have three very important international organizations. First one was supposed to be, right, the International Trade Organization, ITO, International Trade Organization. Second one was World Bank, and the third one was IMF, International Monetary Fund, IMF. Now, please tell me, it's a very simple, basic question. All of you know that as of now, as of today, World Bank as well as IMF both are operating. Yes or no? As of today, World Bank as well as IMF both are working, both are operating. So World Bank and IMF were established. Were established. And what happened to International Trade Organization? The members, right, in the Bretton Woods Conference, the members could not come to a consensus, agreement in the form of what should be the shape or form or the size of ITO, what should be the role of ITO, etc., etc. There were a lot of disagreements. And because we were not able to come to an agreement or ITO, we were not able to establish ITO. ITO was not established. Okay, point number one. Point number two, if there is no ITO, then we should have certain arrangement, temporary certain arrangement should be done, so that over a period of time we will conduct negotiations, we will hold consultations with other countries and have a full form, full body over a period of time. And that is the precise reason, right? Because we did not have ITO, as a stopgap arrangement, as a temporary arrangement, there was one agreement which was signed, very famously referred to as GATT. Okay, as a temporary arrangement, right? As a temporary measure, there was an agreement which was signed, which is referred to as GATT. GATT stands for General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. GATT stands for General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. And over a period of time, consultations were held, negotiations were conducted, and finally in 1995, we were established, or we were able to establish World Trade Organization. World Trade Organization. So I hope you understand the story here. Right? We wanted to have three organizations, but there was no consensus in the third one, that is an ITO. Hence, there was no organization that was set up, but there was a temporary agreement that was signed, which is very famously referred to as a GATT. It is an agreement, a very, very narrow agreement. You'll understand why. We signed an agreement. India was a party to that. And over a period of time, consultations have been held, negotiations have been held. And today, starting from 1995, we have established an organization by the name of WTO. GATT has been subsumed under WTO. GATT is a part of WTO now, agreement part of WTO. And these two organizations, IMF as well as the World Bank, these are also very famously referred to as Bretton Woods twins. These are also very famously referred to as Bretton Woods twins. I hope you understand why these are referred to as Bretton Woods twins now. Okay, this is a basic evolution. Now, why? What is the problem with the GATT? Why we have WTO? Why not just continue with the GATT? Point number one, please understand this. GATT basically is a very, very narrow agreement which covers goods. I'll come back to this. GATT covers goods. It covered trading of goods, whereas the World Trade Organization covers trading in goods, trading in services, intellectual property rights, etc. So can I say, based on this, GATT has a narrow coverage, WTO has a much wider coverage. That is first. Second one, GATT was an agreement. GATT is basically an agreement, whereas a WTO is an organization. GATT is an agreement, WTO is an organization. Under WTO, multiple agreements are there. So don't you think WTO, because it has an institutional structure, is a much better use or much better, right, policy compared to concept of only an agreement, that is GATT. Third, under the coverage of GATT, the number of member countries, or basically how many countries adopted GATT, the number of countries was very much lower compared to WTO. In case of GATT, by 1994, 120 member countries adopted GATT, whereas at WTO, the number of members are more than 150. More than 150 members are there under WTO, right? And finally, in case of WTO, dispute settlement is much, much better compared to what it was in GATT. What is a dispute? How dispute settlement happens under the WTO, etc. You'll understand in some time, right? So basically the argument, right? Basically argument is WTO is a structure. It is an organization, whereas GATT is basically an agreement, right? So organization with multiple agreements is much, much better compared to just an agreement, right? That is a concept. Okay. Now some of you are asking how many member countries are there, etc., etc. I believe somewhere around 190 plus countries are there, or members are there under WTO. Don't worry, right? So don't worry, you can check it in Google also. Okay. Now, when was WTO established? It was established in 1995. Point number one, WTO was established in 1995. Point number two, the headquarters of WTO is present in Geneva, a city in Switzerland. Third one, the functions of WTO. The functions of WTO, right? It is basically to register and implement trade agreements, right? Implement trade agreements. Second one, it will act as a platform, right? It's a platform where negotiations are conducted. It's a place where multiple member countries will come and hold trade negotiations. It will also settle trade dispute. Trade dispute means a disagreement. And some of you are asking, what is the meaning of trade dispute? My dear, dispute means a disagreement. So whenever there is a disagreement over trade, right, between countries such as India and USA, India and Brazil, India and China, USA and China, etc., the trade disputes are settled in WTO. Right? How it will be settled, you don't worry. And finally, right, it is also it is also an organization which will review policies or trade policies of member countries, whether the member countries are implementing right trade policies, are they implementing any policies which is right prohibiting international trade, etc. These kind of trade policies are also reviewed, right? That is, member country trade policies are reviewed by WTO. Okay, right? So these are certain functions of WTO, World Trade Organization. Now, if you want to understand the importance of WTO, please have a look at this table. Please have a look at this table. Okay. Now, what is this table talking about? There is a concept called as trade barriers. Let's start with basics here. Right? There is this idea called as a trade barrier. Now, what is this a trade barrier? Trade barrier is anything that will disturb or disrupt trade between two countries or trading partners. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Trade barrier is anything that will basically restrict or disturb the trade that is happening between trading partners. Can I give you a very simple example? I'll give a very simple example. If government of India will impose a very high amount of a tax on a particular product that will come into India, please tell me, is it going to disturb trade between India with the rest of the world or not? Yes or no? Very simple argument, right? If government of India will impose lot of restrictions on either exports or imports coming into India, will that, right, basically destabilize, right, or restrict trade between India and rest of the world? Answer is yes. So anything that will impose restrictions, that will basically disrupt the trade between member countries of WTO, these are called as trade barriers. And these trade barriers are divided into two parts. These are divided into two parts. One is called as a tariff barrier. Second one is a non-tariff barrier. What do you mean by tariff barrier? Whenever the restriction is in the form of taxes, whenever the restriction that you are imposing is in the form of a taxes, this is called as a tariff barrier. For example, let me ask you a very simple question. Very simple question. If government of India will impose very high amount of a tax on import coming from China, is this a tariff barrier or not? Think of it. Government of India will target a product coming from China and impose very high tariff, very high taxes on it. Is it a tariff barrier? Yes. I'll give you another example. India doesn't want you to export wheat to the international market. Okay. India doesn't want you to export more wheat to the international market. What if government of India will impose more taxes on your exports? Just think of the logic behind it. You're exporting wheat. Government will impose very high amount of taxes when you export the wheat. That is, before you take out the wheat from India, you'll have to pay taxes to government of India. So don't you think because of that market price of the wheat will increase and your export will become less competitive in the international market? Can I call this as a tariff barrier? Is the logic okay? Can I refer to this as a tariff barrier? Why I'm giving you so many examples. My dear, currently government of India and many other countries are doing it. I'm not just saying only government of India. Many countries are doing it. Right? In fact, government of India in recent times, in order to control food inflation in India, has been using the concept of tariff barrier itself. Right? On some of the food imports, the taxes are very high. On some of the food exports, taxes imposed by the government is very high. So that is example of a tariff barrier. But more importantly, can I also come to a conclusion? The barriers can be imposed on the imports as well as exports. Both will disrupt the trade. Does it make sense to you or not? Do not be under the impression that only on the imports I will impose tariffs. Absolutely no. Government can impose a tariff even on the export. Generally, we don't impose them. I repeat, generally, government doesn't impose a taxes on exports. Why? You know the reason. If government will impose taxes and collect, market price will increase. Export competitiveness will come down. Right? So government wants you to export more and more. But now the concern is the domestic market. The domestic market inflation rate is higher. I want to keep inflation under control. Hence, what I will do is I'll impose the taxes on the export as well. So one is called as a tariff. Okay, one is called as a tariff. Second one is a non-tariff. What do you mean by non-tariff? Whenever anything else except taxes is used to disturb the trade, it is called as a non-tariff. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Whenever anything that is a non-tax, anything else except tax is used to disrupt the trade, to disturb the trade, that is called as a non-tariff barrier. I've written the definition also. Using non-tax measures, using non-tax measures to disturb the trade, right? That is basically referred to as right, a non-tariff barrier. Any example? I've given multiple examples. Let's go one by one. First one is quota. First one is quota, right? What is this quota? Let's start. In case of quota, government will impose restriction on imports or exports. Quantity restrictions on imports or exports. Now, many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by quantity restriction? Right? Let's say a very simple example. India is importing, hypothetically, let's say mobile phones. Okay, right? India is imposing, right, importing mobile phones. What if government of India, okay, what if government of India says you are allowed to import mobile phones, but not more than 100 units? Not more than 100 units. Now, please tell me, if government will impose a quantity restriction like this, don't you think automatically import of mobile phones into India will be affected? Yes or no? Right? Because of such a policy, don't you think imports of mobile phones into India will be restricted now? Can we apply the same logic even to export? You are exporting wheat. Government of India doesn't want you to, right? Doesn't want you to export more and more. They will simply say you can export wheat, but not more than 100 tons. Right? Not more than 100 tons. Now, please tell me, with this kind of imposition of quantity restrictions, right? Don't you think exports will be reduced? So I hope you understand. Quotas are nothing but restrictions which are imposed in the form of quantity of exports or quantity of imports. Sir, any example of quotas? Right now, government of India has imposed quotas on many of these agriculture exports. Is it okay? Right now, very recently, government of India has imposed a quota restriction on agriculture exports. Right? So, sugar, rice, etc. At various points of time, quotas have been used. And this is basically one example of a non-tariff. Now, please think of it and do let me know which one do you think, I repeat, which one do you think is more restrictive in nature? Is it a tariff measure, a tariff barrier, or a non-tariff barrier? I'll repeat the statement. Which one do you think is more restrictive, more effective in disrupting the trade? tariff barrier or a non-tariff barrier? Please remember this. It is a non-tariff barrier. Some of you are saying tariff barrier. No, my dear. Non-tariff barriers will restrict the trade more compared to tariff barrier. Let me prove it to you. Let me prove it to you. If you're going to import something, government will increase the taxes. If the production is not there in India, you will continue to import it. Correct? If we do not have sufficient production capacity, no problem, you will continue to import it. And when you continue to import it, the government has imposed a higher tax. Can I say, finally, the market price of the product will increase and the customer will have to bear the burden of higher taxes? Yes or no? The customer will have to bear the burden of higher taxes. On the other side, imports will continue, customer will suffer. On the other side, if government will impose quantity restriction, 100 mobile phones, that's it. Don't you think once you hit the target of 100, doesn't matter, you will not be allowed to import at all? Right? So don't you think the quota restrictions, that is non-tariff restrictions, will disturb the trade, are more effective to control the imports and exports compared to tariff barriers? Right? So non-tariff barriers are much more dangerous. They will disturb the trade in much better way compared to tariff barriers. Okay. Now, second one, exchange rate restriction. Right? What do you mean by exchange rate restriction? I'll give a very simple example. Imagine you are about to import a product into India, but the payment you'll have to do in the form of dollars. The payment for it you'll have to do in the form of dollars. Hypothetically, what if government of India says you will not be allowed to convert rupee to dollars? Please tell me. Hypothetically, what if government of India says you will not be allowed to convert rupees into dollars? Conversion is not allowed. Now, please tell me, will this not have an impact? Will this not have an impact on imports that you are doing? Right? If the vice versa is also done, right? Vice versa means, what if, right, you have received payment in dollars, government will not allow conversion of dollars into rupees? In that case also, don't you think your exports would be affected? Yes or no? Are you people reading newspapers or not? Those are asking why, etc., etc. Are you people reading the newspapers or not? Right? What kind of newspaper articles I'm talking about? India was supposed to make a payment to Russia in yuan. Was there a concern regarding making payments in terms of yuan or not? Hey, Baba, read. That's the reason reading newspapers is so important. Right? If government of India will not allow you to convert rupees to yuan, can you make a payment to Russian exporter? Yes or no? Right? Can you make a payment? No, you cannot make a payment. If you don't make a payment, why will you? Right? Why will they send the export to you? Right? I hope you understand this point. I'll give you one more current affairs example. Example. Couple of months ago, not now, couple of months ago, lot of ships, right, had taken raw materials, were standing at the ports of Pakistan. They were at the ports of Pakistan. But the importers such as a Hero Honda company, right, importers there, they did not have sufficient dollars to pay for imports. They did not have sufficient dollars to pay for imports there. Why? In Pakistan, they had almost run out of dollars. Very few dollars were left out. So government said, I will not allow you to convert your right Pakistani rupees into dollars if you're going to pay for imports. I will not allow you to convert. So don't you think that will affect imports as well as exports if there is a restriction over currency conversion? Of course, yes. Of course, yes, my dear. In fact, I'll give you one more current affairs connection. Right, Russia. Western countries have imposed sanctions over Russia. Correct? Western countries have imposed sanctions over Russia. What do you mean by sanctions there? What is the meaning of concept of sanctions? Russia will export and is supposed to receive payment in dollars. until recently, until last year, Russia will export and receive payment in dollars, then convert dollars into ruble, right, domestic currency. But Western countries said, I will not allow the conversion to dollars only. I will not allow any dollar which will be transferred to Russia. I will not allow it to flow to Russia. So if they are not going to receive payment in terms of dollars, right, don't you think the trade will be disrupted? So there are a lot of examples in the current affairs only. Please understand. Okay, exchange rate restriction. Third one, administrative and technical regulations. Administrative and technical regulations. And I'll give a very simple example. Current affairs I'll take. Until very recently, government of India was concerned that lot of toys are imported into India, and specifically these toys are coming from our friendly country, China. Just a joke, by the way. Right? Don't say how can you tell China is a friendly country, etc., etc. Okay, so lot of these toys are coming from right our neighboring country, trading partner, that is China. Government of India, couple of months ago, couple of years ago, introduced the concept of certifications, certificates. That is, have a look at this. Anybody who is importing these toys has to go to BIS. All of you heard of authority by the name of BIS? Bureau of Indian Standards. They will have to go to BIS, show the toys right to the BIS, and BIS will give a certificate to them. They will say that in these toys, no harmful products are there, right? Nothing harmful for the children. Such a certificate will be issued to these importers. And only then they will be allowed to import toys into India. Now, please tell me, if such kind of restrictions are imposed in the form of certification, in the form of meeting certain technology requirement, standard requirement, etc., right, will that not affect imports as well as exports? Yes or no? Will that not affect imports as well as exports? Of course, yes. International trade would be disrupted by such regulations. And many of you think, why, sir, why it should happen, etc., etc. My dear, the authorities may not give you certificates very quickly. Authorities might ask for more documentation. Authorities might ask you to pay certain charges to get a certificate. All these are problems. All these are problems. What you want as an importer, just apply common sense, you'll understand. What you want as an importer is a free flow of import. You do not want to report, you do not want to get certificates, you do not want to pay anything. You want to get it as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, as easily as possible. But if more and more restrictions are imposed, get a certificate, prove to me that the product is not harmful, etc., etc., that is a problem. It will create problems in the international trade. And finally, government procurement policy. Government procurement policy. Right? I'll just give you one example. Again, I'll connect it to current affairs. All of you heard of a FAME initiative? Let me know. In fact, this year mains question was asked on FAME. All of you heard of FAME initiative, faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles. FAME 1, FAME 2. Now, in case of FAME initiative, government will provide you subsidies. Government will give you incentives. But there's a condition. Government will provide you incentives, but there's a condition. What is the condition? 50% of the components, 50% of the components that you right are using should be purchased from Indian market only. I'll repeat the statement. 50% of the components that you are using, you should purchase it from the Indian market only. If such conditions are imposed, please tell me, will it restrict import of these products into India or not? Right? Are you able to understand why such policies might restrict the imports? Because you will procure it from the domestic market rather than importing it. Right? So these are various examples. These are various examples of non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers. Tariff, as well as non-tariff. Non-tariff barriers are much more effective in restricting trade compared to tariff barriers. Please remember that. Now, let me go forward. What is the structure of WTO? Right? What is the organization structure of WTO? The highest decision making body, I repeat, the highest decision making body of World Trade Organization is a ministerial conference. Ministerial conference. Next year we are supposed to have a ministerial conference. Please read. 12th is over. 13th ministerial conference is supposed to happen next year. In fact, in the last couple of weeks, if you're reading newspapers, the deliberations, the discussions regarding the next year's conference has already started. So ministerial conference is the highest decision making body. In the ministerial conference, please remember, the ministers of all the member countries, the trade ministers of all the member countries will participate, and they'll come to certain agreements. They'll come to certain agreements. Right? That is basically the concept of ministerial conference. But don't you think, rather than asking the ministers to meet every day, there should be one more part of WTO. There should be one more organization within WTO which will take care of day-to-day activities of WTO. Because the ministers cannot meet every day to take care of functions of WTO. For example, many of you ask me, sir, what kind of activities are you talking about? What about trade policy review of member countries? What about dispute settlement? Right? What about many reports which are published by WTO? So for all of this, you cannot expect ministers of all the member countries to come together every day, start discussing on everyday basis. That's not possible. So to take care of day-to-day activities of WTO, there is one more authority under WTO, General Council. And in the General Council, please remember, all the member countries will have one representation, right? One person representative will be there in the General Council. So all the member countries are represented in the General Council. General Council will meet to review trade policies of member countries. General Council will also meet, right, generally once every 15 days or generally once in a month to resolve disputes between the member countries. To resolve the disputes between the member countries, that is called as a dispute settlement body. Okay, this is basically the structure of World Trade Organization. Remember, the most important part, right, highest decision making body within WTO is a ministerial conference. This generally means, I repeat, this generally means once every 2 years. It's a convention, not a compulsion. Please remember this. It's a convention. Convention means practice. The convention is that once every 2 years, the ministerial conference will be meeting. Okay, so this is basically the concept of WTO structure. Now let me go to the next. Principles of World Trade Organizations. What are the principles? On what basis WTO actually functions? The three very important principles. One is most favored nation. And please do let me know how many of you have read the newspaper article where Supreme Court of India has issued a judgment regarding double taxation avoidance agreement. Let me see. Right, because the MFN, most favored nation, was actually discussed in that article. I'll repeat it. Very recently, Supreme Court of India has issued a judgment regarding double taxation avoidance agreement. How many of you have read that? And please don't ask me what is double taxation avoidance agreement. Go back to taxation chapter. We have discussed DTA. We have discussed DTA under the taxation chapter. Please revise it. Now, what is the concept? I'll explain it. What is MFN? Why it was actually discussed under Supreme Court of India as a judgment, etc. I'll tell you. Listen to me carefully. Most favored nation. It's a misnomer. Many of the students will misunderstand the term most favored nation. If I ask you, define what is most favored nation, most of you will basically say, most favored nation means there are countries or there is one country which is our favorite, right? Hence, we will call them as most favored nation. No, that is not most favored nation. Most favored nation or MFN simply means whatever is your barriers or whatever guidelines you have, whatever tariffs and regulations you have, you'll have to apply them uniformly across all the trading partners. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Whatever tariffs you have, whatever guidelines you have regarding the trade, you will have to apply them uniformly, all right, amongst all your trading partners. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot prefer one country over another country in terms of application of these guidelines. You cannot prefer it. You cannot have any bias. That is a concept of most favored nation. Sir, what do you mean by this? Let me give you a very simple example. Imagine you're importing this remote control. All of you can see remote control in my hand. There is a small remote control. Imagine you are importing this remote control. Here is India. You are importing this remote control from country 1, country 2, right? Country 3, etc. Right? Now, what is most favored nation say? If you are going to impose a 10% tax, if you're going to impose a 10% tax on the import of the remote control, then whether the remote control comes from country 1, country 2, country 3, country 4, doesn't matter. On all the countries' imports of remote control, you'll have to impose 10% tax itself. This concept of a non-biased approach, not biased approach, non-biased approach, it is called as most favored nation. Can we go forward now? Everybody is okay with this? You cannot be biased with one country and right, not biased against another country. You cannot have such policies. Whatever your tariffs are there, uniformly you'll have to implement across all trading partners. That is called as a most favored nation. Now, is it universally applicable all the time? No. Understand this. This is a tricky part. Are there any exceptions to this concept of a most favored nation? Yes, there are exceptions. I'll give you one example. India and Australia very recently have signed a trade agreement. Correct? Yes or no? India and Australia last year itself have signed a trade agreement. And right now, if you're reading newspapers, India is conducting negotiations with UK for signing one more trade agreement. It is conducting negotiations. Now, please tell me, if you sign a trade agreement with a country, don't you think you're guaranteeing certain benefits to that country? Please think of it and let me know. Does it make sense or not? If you sign a trade agreement with Australia, what is the use of trade agreement? You are telling Australia, if this remote will come from China, I will impose a 10%. But if this remote control will come from you, I will impose 0%. All of you are okay with this? Right? Right? Is it a violation of MFN? Of course, yes. It is a violation because under MFN, you cannot have favoritism. You cannot be in preference of one country and biased against another country. You cannot do that. But these are exceptions. These are exceptions to MFN. A free trade agreement is an exception. In fact, I'll tell you one more. Right, one more very important example, and it was there in the newspapers. I'll tell you the context. There's a system called as generalized system of preferences. Generalized system of preferences. Sir, when it was there in the newspaper, when Prime Minister of India visited USA, when PM visited USA, there was one argument, one demand that was put forward by Indian side. India asked for reintroduction, right? Basically, inclusion of India under generalized system of preferences. In short, this is referred to as GSP, generalized system of preferences. Now, what is this concept of generalized system of preferences? Listen very carefully. All these are there in current affairs, so listen carefully. Here is a developed country. Here is a developed country, and here is another developed country and developing country. Right? If I want to give you examples, let's say USA, India, and Germany. USA, India, and Germany. Please think logically and tell me, don't you think USA being a developed country should provide a certain exemptions, should provide certain benefits whenever India will export to USA, right, compared to Germany? That is, in simple terms, what I'm asking you is, don't you think if Germany will export this remote control and India will also export this remote control to USA, it should be the duty of USA to provide certain benefit exemption to India's exports, because India is a developing country. Germany is already a developed country, right? USA doesn't have to provide any benefit to Germany. It's already developed. But India is a developing country, so you should get certain exemption from USA. This system is called as generalized system of preferences. This is referred to as a generalized system of preferences. Under GSP, please remember this, a developed country, very important, a developed country will provide a certain benefits to a developing country whenever trade is conducted between them. Whenever trade is conducted between them, and there is no compulsion, please remember, it is an option for the developed countries. You cannot force developed countries to provide you exemption. It is an option available to them. It is entirely up to USA whether to provide this benefit to us or not. What kind of benefit? This remote will come from Germany to USA. USA will impose 20% tax. Let's say this remote will come from Germany to USA, right? USA will impose 20% tax. Now, don't you think automatically, if you apply MFN principle, automatically, if this remote will come from any other country to USA, 20% tax should be applicable. But under GSP, it says if it is coming from a developing country, then USA might decide, let's eliminate, let's simply not have any kind of tariff on the product, which means India's exports to USA would be promoted. Right? So that is a concept of GSP, generalized system of preferences. India was provided GSP status. Earlier, Indian exports, and again, how many exports, right, which kind of a product, all of it will be decided by USA. So India's exports were given GSP status by USA government. But earlier administration, when Mr. Donald Trump was the president, when Mr. Donald Trump was the president, Donald Trump alleged that India is right not providing any benefit to USA. In fact, India is imposing very high tariffs on USA's exports. So we should not provide any kind of benefit, any kind of exemption to India's exports. That is the precise reason the GSP status that was given to India was withdrawn by the government of USA. Now, government of India is lobbying. It is asking USA government to please reinstate GSP status to India's exports. All of you okay with this? All of you okay with this concept of GSP? So at the end of it, can I say, right? Can I basically say even the generalized system of preferences is an exception, right? Exception to, right, the concept of MFN? Yes or no? Right? Is the GSP status exception, right? It is not coming under MFN. It is an exception to the concept of MFN. Now come to the current affairs. Come to the current affairs. What is a current affairs? Right? There is a country called as Netherlands. Correct? There is a country called as Netherlands. World Cup. Those who are watching World Cup, they'll be very happy with this country example. Netherlands. So from Netherlands, lot of investments have come to India, and on such investment, there is a tax applicable. There is a tax applicable, 10%. But in that agreement, which is there between India and Netherlands, agreement, double taxation avoidance agreement, the provision also says that if India will provide on such type of investments which will come from other countries, if India in future will provide or impose a lower than 10% tax, then the same benefit should also be extended to the investments coming from Netherlands. All of you are following this? I'm simplifying it. It's a very complicated process. I'm just simplifying it. Right? Process is simple. From Netherlands, money has come into India. Investments have come to India. On such investments, 10% tax is applicable as per double taxation avoidance agreement, right, by Government of India. But the agreement also says in future, any such investments will come to India from other trading partners, other countries, not from Netherlands, other countries, and India will provide a tax rate lesser than that, not 10%, less than 10%, then we will apply MFN principle, and that lower tax should automatically be applicable even to the investments coming from Netherlands. Done? And over a period of time, India has signed multiple agreements with other countries also. And under these agreements with other countries, India is imposing 5% tax. India is imposing how much tax? 5%. So from Netherlands, 10%, other countries, right, with whom we have agreement, 5%. So don't you think if you apply MFN principle, even to the investments coming from Netherlands, they should impose only 5% tax? Yes or no? Please let me know. Think logically, right? If you apply MFN principle from other countries, right, you are attracting investments, you are imposing 5% tax. From Netherlands, you are attracting investment, you are imposing 10% tax. Right? Are you not seeing a bias here? Are you not seeing a bias? Right? Is it violation of MFN? Of course, yes. So, if you apply MFN principle, even to the investments coming from Netherlands, we should apply 5% tax. Right? That was the argument. That was the argument of one side. And they basically assumed that, okay, we will apply MFN and we'll pay 5% tax. And they have paid 5% tax on their profits on the investment. Now, Supreme Court of India, right? This is a legality. Supreme Court of India says, whenever such agreements are signed like this, the Government of India has to announce that even when Netherlands investments will come into India, it will be 5%. Yes or no? I'll repeat it again. Supreme Court of India says automatically you cannot assume it. Automatically you cannot assume, okay, MFN is applicable, I'll pay 5% tax. No, you cannot assume it. What is the argument of Supreme Court of India? Government of India has to separately notify. It has to notify and say that because we have signed this agreement, Netherlands investments, when they will come to India now, tax rate will not be 10%. In fact, it will be 5%. That notification has to be issued by the Government of India. And that is a precise reason, right? Now you have paid 5%. You are supposed to pay 10% because Government of India is not notified. You are supposed to pay 10%. You have paid 5%. That will not be accepted. All of you are okay with this argument of Supreme Court of India? That whether you like it, don't like it, doesn't matter. But understand, right? Understand. That's very important. Suddenly next year, UPC can pick up a question on MFN. UPC can pick up a question on DTAA. Right? There's a section of Income Tax Act. UPC can pick up a section of right, Income Tax Act also. Because it was there. Because it was there in the current affairs. Don't search in the books. In the books, you will not get all of this. But in the current affairs, you'll get all of it. Okay, now, all of you okay with the most favored nation principle? Now let me go forward. In the MFN, let's say in this example, India has given most favored nation to country 1, country 2, country 3, and let's say Pakistan. Again, current affairs. Let's say Pakistan. And government of India says, on security reasons, on security grounds, right, I will not give any status of MFN to Pakistan. I will remove Pakistan from the most favored nation list of India. I will remove it. Now, what is the impact of it? Can I say, once India will remove Pakistan from the list of MFN, if this remote will come from Pakistan, government of India can impose now 50% tax. Possible or not? Think of it. Right? If India will remove, it has already removed, by the way. It has removed Pakistan from the list of MFN. This remote will come from country 1, 10%. Country 2, 10%. Country 3, 10%. Pakistan, government of India will have the right to impose 50%. Can Pakistan appeal against it under WTO? No. Why? Pakistan does not have the MFN status now. Because they don't have the MFN status, they cannot simply say, right, government of India is targeting my product. Government says, yes, I can target because you are not in the MFN list. Right? Can I also add one more point? Just what we have discussed, one more point. If this remote will come from, let's say, Australia, if this will come from Australia, government of India will say 0%. All of you okay with these arguments? All of you okay with this? Right? MFN, exception to the MFN and non-MFN. Okay? Now, second principle, national treatment. Second principle is national treatment. Now, what is this national treatment? Once the product will come into India, I'm talking about product, you can apply it to investments, etc., etc., etc. Once the product or a service will come into India, government of India cannot discriminate between two products. I'll repeat the statement. Right? Imagine this manufactured, right? This marker is manufactured in India. A similar marker is imported into India. It has been imported. Now, government of India cannot discriminate, cannot have a policy where one product will be discriminated, another product will be favored. That is called as a national treatment. I can apply this logic of national treatment to a good. I can apply to investments. And don't you think if they start targeting investments from other countries, that is not national treatment? Yes or no? If services will come from USA, government of India will target those services once already imported, not while importing. They are already there in India. Government of India will have a different policy targeting that company and right, one policy promoting domestic companies. So don't you think that is unfair? Right? So argument is simple. Whenever it is already imported, you cannot have a policy, right, discriminating against that product, good or a service or investment. Third one, free trade. What is the concept of free trade? Lower trade barriers. As much as possible, eliminate trade barriers so that the trade between the countries, trade between partners will be improved, will be increasing over a period of time. Right? So these are the three very important principles of World Trade Organization. Please remember it. Now, let me go to the next one. WTO agreements. Right? Some of the statements, or let's say some of the acronyms are missing here. I'll write it. Please don't worry. Here it is, WTO, World Trade Organization, right? WTO agreements. Now I'll discuss certain very, very important agreements. Please listen to me very carefully. First one, did we discuss already? First agreement, that is under WTO, did we discuss earlier subsidies and countervailing measures? Please do let me know. Did we discuss one agreement, subsidies and countervailing measures? What is the importance of it? What is the issue? Why India has violated provisions under this, etc. There is one more agreement under WTO that we'll discuss. Please do not panic. Agreement on agriculture. AOA stands for Agreement on Agriculture. Most probably tomorrow we will discuss Agreement on Agriculture. Please don't worry. AOA, very, very important. Multiple times it is there in the current affairs. We'll discuss that also separately. Now, what are these three which are missing? Nothing is written in the table, right? It is missing. I'll write it. One is called as a GATS. One is called as GATS. Second one is called as a TRIPS. Third one is called as right, TRIMS. One is called as a GATS. Right? Before you start typing what is a long form of a GAT, please look at the first line under each of the classification. Look at the first line under all the three rectangles, you will see the long form. GATS simply stands for General Agreement on Trade in Services. General Agreement on Trade in Services. TRIPS stands for Trade Related Intellectual Property Rights. And TRIMS stands for Trade Related Investment Measures. Let's go one by one. Let's go one by one. What is this GATS? GATS covers the services. GATS covers the services which are traded across borders. GATS covers the services which are traded across borders. Now, what kind of services they are going to cover? Please look at the list very carefully. Look at the list very carefully. First one is called as a cross-border supply. Second one is called as a consumption abroad. Third one is called as a commercial presence. And the fourth one is called as presence of natural persons. I'll explain all of them with example. You will have to listen. You'll have to listen with attention. First one is here. Second one is third one is here. And the fourth one is here. Now let's say there are two countries. India, Australia, India, USA, India, UK, doesn't matter. Two countries. And this is a border. Can you see a black color solid dotted line? Black color solid dotted line, right? This is a border, which means services are crossing the border, exports and imports. Let's start. First one. The consumer as well as the supplier do not cross the border. Look at the picture. Please look at the picture and listen to what I say. The consumer and the service supplier do not cross the border, but the services will cross the border. Many of you ask me, sir, any example of it? What about telemarketing services? What about BPO services? What about banking services? Right? Or advertisement services? Have you not seen in multiple examples where consumer will remain in the same country, supplier will remain in their own country, but across the border, services will be provided? All of you okay with this? Anybody has a problem? All of you okay with this? Right? Sir, any example in real life? My dear, have you seen Slumdog Millionaire? Let me see. Have you people watched a Slumdog Millionaire movie? Right? Arey Baba, very interesting people, by the way. Right? The movie which has won so many Oscar awards. Right? Many of you are saying no. Arey Baba, watch it, watch it. Again, not at the risk of, let's say, not reading for UPSC. If you're feeling tired, etc., etc. I don't know what you people do, but you should have certain amount of entertainment. That is my policy. Right? If you don't want to have any entertainment, perfectly right, perfectly all right. But at certain point of time, you should have certain recreational activities. Right? For many of you, just like me, watching movies or web series would be that particular release. So anyways, don't worry. If you have not watched it, don't worry. But can I say BPO services, call center services? Best example, call center services or training videos, right? Or online classes, right? Let's say you have enrolled into a foreign university, you are sitting in India, you are learning, you are taking classes of a foreign university. The lecturer is standing in foreign and you are getting the classes in India. So all of you will agree, services are getting transferred across the border. Neither the consumer nor the service provider are crossing borders. First one, cross-border supply. Cross-border supply. Second one, consumption abroad. Consumption abroad. That is, you are a consumer. Let's say you will go to USA for tour. Right? Tour is a service, by the way. Right? So when you go to a tour, or let's say, let me take current affairs example. Netherlands match is going on. Can you see supporters of Netherlands traveled all the way from their country to India to consume services, hotel services, traveling services, food services, etc., etc. So can I say in this example, World Cup only, best example. In this example, service provider is not crossing border, but customers are crossing borders. All of you are okay with this? Right? Nothing difficult in that. Right? Just watch World Cup, you will realize that. Service provider is not crossing border, but consumers are crossing the border. This is basically the concept of consumption abroad. Consumers will cross the border. Third one, commercial presence. Commercial presence. The service provider will cross the border and enter into a country where consumer is present. I'll repeat it. The service provider will cross the border, go to another country where customers are present. They will go to the market where customers are present. Can I give you an example? Air Asia company. All of you heard of Air Asia company? Air Asia is basically a foreign service provider. So Air Asia company has come to India and is providing traveling services to you. Vodafone company. Please tell me, Vodafone, is it an Indian company? How many of you are under the impression that Vodafone is an Indian company? No. Vodafone is a foreign company, service provider. They have come to India where customers are present, consumers are present. So I am not crossing the border. Company is crossing the border. Provider is crossing the border. That is called as a commercial presence. That is called as commercial presence. Fourth one, right? Presence of natural persons. Presence of natural persons. What is this concept of presence of natural persons? In case of presence of natural persons, remember this, an individual. Now please listen carefully. After this, don't ask me what is difference between third and fourth. I'm talking about fourth. An individual will cross border. Individual will cross a border, join a company in foreign market and start providing services. Or else an individual will cross a border and still will remain an individual and will provide services. Can I give an example? What about teachers? Think of it. What about teachers? Yoga instructors, chefs, etc. Is the logic okay? Right? Imagine I'm a doctor. Okay, imagine I'm a doctor. I'm not a doctor, by the way. Imagine I'm a doctor or an engineer. I will cross the border, go to another country, join a company, and start providing services. That is one way. Or else I will cross the border, still remain an individual, and still provide services. That is the second way. That is the concept of presence of natural persons. Okay, right? So these are the four types. Please remember, questions have been asked in the past about the modes of services. Again, they can be asked. Please be very careful. Okay, so these are the four types, right, which are covered. International trade in services, which are covered under the concept of the GATS system, General Agreement on Trade in Services. Now, please do let me know, does it make sense to you if I say under GATS, the member countries of WTO should follow the WTO principles such as reducing trade barriers, right? Basically addressing the issue of or having MFN principle, having national treatment, etc. Please let me know. Does it make sense to you if I say member countries such as India should provide national treatment to services, should provide MFN status to services, should reduce trade barriers so that the trade in services will be increasing. That is the concept of GATS, General Agreement on Trade in Services. Let me go to the next one, TRIPS. Right? Let me go to the next one, TRIPS, Trade Related Intellectual Property Rights. First and foremost, what do you mean by intellectual property rights? What do you mean by intellectual property rights? Anything that is a creation of a mind. I repeat, anything that is a creation of a mind is called as intellectual property rights. For example, copyrights, right? Copyrights. Have you heard of this? Copyrights. If you purchase, right, or if you go to watch a movie, they'll say copyrights, right? Do not use your camera to record. It's a copyright material, etc., etc. What about, right? Let's say books. There's a copyright on books. What about patents? Technology, right? Patents are issued, right? Industrial designs are there, trademarks are there, right? Etc., etc. For example, right? Think of it. Can you produce, right, let's say a shoes and put this particular symbol on your shoes and try to sell it in the market? Try doing that. Can you produce, right, let's say shoe and put this particular symbol, swoosh symbol, and sell it in the market? If you do that, you might escape from the law for some days, but one fine day, the law will catch up with you. Because please understand, this is a trademark. It is given to Nike. Nike is a trademark. Nike has a right over it. You cannot use it. So anything that is a creation of a mind, anything that is a creation of mind is called as intellectual property rights. And whenever companies are going to spend a lot of money to have intellectual property rights, every member country of WTO should provide protection to the intellectual property rights. For example, if Samsung company will come to India and start manufacturing, can you copy their patent, manufacture mobile phones and sell? Think of it, right? Can you basically copy the technology of right Samsung, manufacture phones and sell? You can make profits, but Samsung will file a case against you. You're not supposed to use their patented technology, right? So every member country should have their policies in order to provide protection to the intellectual property rights. That is the concept of TRIPS, right? Member country should provide MFN status, should provide national treatment, etc., to these kinds of intellectual property rights. This is covered under TRIPS. India is a member to all of them. India is a signatory under all of them. Okay. Next one, trims. And many of you will basically say, but sir, there is a Samsung, there's Apple, etc., etc. My dear, very often have you not come across battle against one another, where one company will file a let's say a suit, that is a complaint, against another company in various countries. For example, Samsung will file a case against Apple, say that they have violated one of their patents. Apple will drag Samsung to court in one more country saying that, okay, this has violated one of their copyrights or industrial designs, etc. So these protections are provided. If they feel that, right, you are violating them, then the respective member country, that is a WTO member country, should have a law to protect them. And that is basically the concept of right, TRIPS. Trims. Concept of trims, right? What is this idea of a trims? Trims will cover trade in goods as well as investments. Trims or trade related investment measures will cover, right, the trade in goods as well as right, investments. That is, for example, if there is right, let's say investment coming from USA into India. If there is an investment coming from USA to India, government of India cannot target this investment and reduce such investments. If the target USA have a policy of targeting investments, then these policies should target all the investments. Just now I've given you one example. Yes or no? What is the example? Investments coming from Netherlands, investments coming from Lithuania, right? Investments coming from Luxembourg, etc. So if you have a policy, right, then that policy should be applicable to all the investments which are coming from your trading partners. You cannot target only one country and right, be favored in investments coming from another country. Right? That is applicable to goods, that is applicable to investments, etc. The policy should be implemented by respective member countries. This is called as TRIPS, trade related investment measures. Done, right? So basically GATS, TRIPS, TRIMS, SCM, agreement on agriculture, all these are the multiple types of agreements under World Trade Organization, under WTO, World Trade Organization. Okay, done. So let me go to the one more concept here, dispute settlement. How the dispute settlement happens under WTO. Listen very carefully. Okay, how do we stop investments from China, particularly in important sectors like banks? You cannot have a policy targeting only China. Please remember this. I'll give you one example. You cannot have a policy targeting only China, because if you have a policy targeting only China, then are you not violating MFN principle? Think of it. Please think of it. Right? If you target only investments coming from China, then you are violating MFN principle. Then China can drag you to WTO, file a complaint. I'll come to that only, dispute. So what you will do is, I'll give you current affairs example. What you will do is, most of the imports are coming from China. Example, toys. Example, laptops, personal computers, etc. What you will basically say is, okay, because I want to promote manufacturing, right? I want to keep a tab on how many laptops are coming into India. I want to keep a control, not even control, tab means information. You're not controlling them, you're managing them. If you have been reading newspapers, this is exactly what government secretaries are saying. They're saying we are not going to control imports of PCs. No, we are not going to control that. We are going to manage them. Right? We are not going to control them. We are going to manage them. Manage means what? I want to know how much imports are coming from which countries. That's it. I don't want you to take a license for it. No, I don't want you to do that. I do not want to put restriction on it. No, absolutely no. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is essentially keep a track. Find out how much import from which country. Just give me that information. That is one example. That is one example. Second example, I'll give you current affairs example only. FDI investments. Lot of investments keep on coming into, right? Lot of investments keep on coming into India from China. And couple of years ago, Government of India introduced a new policy wherein they said any investments coming from India's neighboring country. Listen to me very carefully. Any investments coming from India's neighboring country, they will have to take approval from Government of India. Now, please tell me, right? Do you think we are getting a lot of investments from Bangladesh? We are getting a lot of investments, right, from Nepal. We are getting a lot of investments from Pakistan, Sri Lanka. No, right? Right, most of the investments from our neighboring countries, the investments come from China in India. So what Government of India said? Any investments coming from our neighboring countries, they will have to take the approval from Government of India, which means we know from where investments are coming, but without violating any of the principles of WTO, we are trying to control them. We are trying to impose more regulations on them. Done? Right? So this is basically the discussion regarding how you can formulate policies, frame policies, right, without violating any of the provisions of WTO. Next, concept of dispute settlement. Idea of dispute settlement. Now, what is this dispute settlement? Understand very carefully here. Whenever there is a disagreement over trade policy between trading partners, we'll call this as a dispute. India is unhappy with the trade policy of USA. That is a disagreement. It will basically become a dispute. China is unhappy with the trade policy of government of USA. It's a disagreement. That becomes a dispute. So whenever there's a dispute like this, how the dispute is actually settled, the following process is followed. Let's go step by step. Step number one, the member countries, right? Any country which is in disagreement with a trade policy of another country or other countries will file a complaint against the trading partner at dispute settlement body. DSB is nothing but dispute settlement body. Do you remember this? Dispute settlement body. Right? So any country, any member country, India has a disagreement over USA policy, they can file a complaint at dispute settlement body. USA earlier was unhappy with MEIS and SEIS. They filed a complaint against India at dispute settlement body. So if you are in disagreement with any of the policies, you can go to a dispute settlement body and file a complaint. Initially, the dispute settlement body will ask the member countries to resolve the disputes amongst themselves. Right? They will ask the member countries to resolve disputes amongst themselves, try to hold negotiations, consultations, etc. But if they cannot resolve the dispute, if the member countries cannot resolve the disagreement, then an expert panel is appointed by the body. Right? An expert panel consisting of 3 experts is appointed by the body. Now, this panel will study the disagreement, what is the policy on which there is a disagreement, etc. They will submit a report. They will submit a report. Now, let's say, I'll take a hypothetical example. There is a dispute between USA and India. Okay, there is a dispute between USA and India. For example, MEIS scheme. Government of India implemented MEIS, but by implementing MEIS, we are violating the SCM, that is subsidies and countervailing measures agreement. So USA will go to WTO and file a complaint against MEIS. Now the panel is set up. They will study the policy of MEIS, and they found that MEIS is actually violating the principle under SCM. It is violating the provisions of subsidies and countervailing measures, which means the panel says India is wrong, USA is correct. India has to withdraw this policy. That is basically what they're saying. India has to withdraw the policy. Now, India has an option. What is the option? India can appeal against the panel at one more body under DSP called as appellate body. India can go to appellate body and file an appeal. Just like, if you're confused, imagine if you have a case at a district court, if you lose at district court, you will go to high court. Yes or no? And if you lose at high court, you will go to Supreme Court. Appeals. Apply the same logic. So you have lost, right? Because the panel says you are wrong. Now you can appeal against the panel finding at appellate body. And appellate body generally will look at, right, what is the findings of the panel. Either it will uphold or it will reject the findings. But final decision whether to accept or reject is generally taken by the dispute settlement body. The dispute settlement body, where member countries are there, representation of member countries is there. The dispute settlement body will decide whether to accept the report or reject the report. And please remember this, this is important. Until and unless everybody agrees to reject the report. I'll repeat the statement. Until and unless everybody agrees to reject the report will be accepted by the body. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? Until unless every member country in the dispute settlement body agrees to reject the report, by default they will accept the report. Right? Why? Many of you basically say, why sir? Why such kind of a policy is followed? My dear, you tell me, if there is a voting in the dispute settlement body, will India vote in the favor or against this report? Think of it. Will India vote in favor or against the findings of the panel? Don't you think automatically India will say, I will oppose the findings? Yes or no? Does it make sense or not? Right? They are against you. Automatically, you will oppose it. And in your support, many other countries might also say, okay, we will also oppose. Right? You supported us at other time. Now we will support you. We'll stand in solidarity with India. We will also oppose the panel's report. Which means, right? Basically, there is opposition. There is no consensus. Does it mean a report is not accepted? No. Until and unless, right? Remember the term. Until and unless there is a negative consensus. Until and unless there is a negative consensus. Negative consensus means what? Every member country in the DSP is against the report findings, which doesn't happen. Every member country in the DSP is against the findings of the report. Please tell me, does it happen? Can you imagine any situation where every member country is opposed to the report? No. That is the reason I said until unless there's a negative consensus, by default they'll accept the report. Right? This is basically how the dispute settlement actually works. Now, certain important points. Look at the appellate body. In the appellate body, right? In the appellate body, experts are there. Okay, judges in simple terms. Right? As per the WTO, maximum number of judges who can be there or members can be there in the appellate body are 7, maximum. And every one of them will have a tenure of 4 years. Every one of the expert in the appellate body will have a tenure of 4 years. Now, once, let's assume, right? Hypothetically, let's assume I'm the expert. My 4 years are over. Somebody has to be appointed or I will have to be reappointed. Now, we require consensus of all the member countries for appointment. We require consensus of all the member countries to make an appointment. What has happened? What has happened is USA, in recent years, USA has been opposing appointments. USA has been opposed to appointment in the appellate body. Now, if there is no consensus, can I say appointments will not happen? And as a result of this, over a period of time, can I say you will see 2 people in the appellate body, 3, right? From 4, it will fall down to 2. From 6, it will fall down to 4. Then maybe it will fall down to 3. Then it will come down to 2. Then it will come down to 1. Then it will come down to 0. Right now, there are 0 experts in the appellate body. Remember this. Right now, there are 0 experts in the appellate body. Which means, please tell me, imagine a situation, you will take your case to Supreme Court of India. Imagine, I'm not saying it will happen. Imagine there are no judges in Supreme Court of India. Then who will take up your case? Nobody will take up your case. Can I say the whole process will get stalled? The whole process becomes ineffective now. You have gone up to Supreme Court. You have appealed against the order of High Court. There is no judge in the Supreme Court. Then basically the whole judiciary system will become ineffective. All of you will agree with me? Apply the same logic here. You will appeal against the findings of the appellate body. Findings against the panel at the appellate body. And there is supposed to be 3 members to take up. Right? Every appeal has to be taken up by 3 members. Now there are 0 members, which means who is going to take up your appeal? Nobody. Right? Don't you think the whole dispute settlement system will fall down because of it? Will become inefficient because of it? This is actually the situation right now. All of you okay with this? This is actually the current situation as of now. There are no members in the appellate body, hence whatever appeals have been done, it is stuck up there only. Until unless appeals body creates it, dispute settlement body cannot vote. That is where the system has become ineffective. Okay, right? So these are certain points I wanted to discuss in the context of WTO. If there are any questions, please do let me know. Otherwise, we can stop the discussion. We can continue tomorrow. Can we say in hands of the country? Can we say in hands of country and then it again disturbing world trade? Then what is fun of making MFN rules, sir? Confused. Arey Baba. Would you want, okay, for example, I'll give a very simple example. Right, again, don't apply this in the UPSC exam. If you have seen, your parents will say, let's say your 3 siblings. Your parents will say every one of their kids is equally important to them. Yes or no? Just a similar example. If your parents have three children, your parents will say all of them are equally important to them. But don't you think in heart of your heart, in reality, somebody will be their favorite? They'll be more biased towards one of you and right, unbiased, or let's say very least, right, focused on some of you. Apply the same logic. MFN says everybody should be treated in the same way, but there are certain exceptions. Otherwise, why will Australia enter into trade agreement with me? Let me know, why will Australia enter into trade agreement with me? What is the use of the trade agreement to Australia? Why will China, or let's say, why will I enter into a trade agreement with UK? What is the use of it for me? Why will I enter into trade agreement with Saudi Arabia or UAE for that matter? What is the use of it for me? If I have to treat everybody the same way, right, there is no use of trade agreement. But within the MFN, there is a exception. You can favor some of the countries. Okay. So, sir, Australia not in MFN list. Who said Australia is not in MFN list? It is there in MFN list, but we have a trade agreement with them. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? How China copies item without any problem? My dear, using the same technology is not allowed. Can you copy the technology? Think of it. You cannot use the same technology. It's not allowed, right? Can you use copy that and use in a different way? And there are a lot of litigation, lot of cases filed because of that also. Sir, if Australia is MFN, then how can we take 0% tax while from others in MFN 10% tax? My dear, again, I'll repeat it. Because you have signed an agreement with Australia, you can have a favored, you can have a biased approach to them. You can favor trade with Australia. You can give more discounts, again, in terms of taxation. You can right, give them more discounts. Okay. Okay, done then. So let me stop the discussion today here. Tomorrow, let me continue the discussion. We'll start with the concept of economic integration. Okay, we'll start with right a concept of economic integration tomorrow. So see you tomorrow evening sharp at 5 p.m. Take care. Good night.